Trapped under the curse of the tower, Hyunwoo Kim is the strongest hunter of them all. But no matter what, it wouldn't let him leave. One day, out of absolutely nowhere, the world itself was thrown into the frying pan as monsters came from thin air. All around the globe, towers began to raise from the ground. Monolith structures that put governments and citizens into panic. The self-called tutorial towers would drag unknowing victims into their dark halls regularly, with the only option of escape being to clear it. No matter the age or physical condition, if you were chosen, there was only one way out: up. Just wish they'd installed an elevator, you know? Among the 20% of those who survived the tower and its harsh battles, one person would become the savior of mankind. 12 years later, as the world had acclimated to the towers, monsters became nothing short of an annoyance for the authorities with the introduction and adoption of hunters. These hunters would often be on the same popularity bar as idols and would be treated as such, with all the cameras and paparazzi that come with it. As hunters began to strengthen in numbers and fame, the governments of the world could not ignore their mighty military capabilities, and thus the number of hunters soon became a part of a nation's power. To protect themselves from these nations and some laws, hunters began to raise their prices and move together as an association, or by common fantasy terms, a guild. Now we join the live broadcast of a TV show, Knowing the Hunter, where curious fans submit questions and receive news on the activities of their favorite hunters or guilds. During its time on air, the show managed to rake in a 35.7% viewer rating and became widely established as a popular program. This week, 3 of the top guild leaders in Korea are with them on air. Leader of the Goguryeo Guild, So Kwon-han, leader of the Arangs Guild, So-yeon Lee, finally, leader of the Seoul Guild, Shi-hyun Kim. During the last minutes, the guildmasters are asked one more question about a familiar face. The top question on the internet at the time: what do they know about the mythical advanced player of the tutorial tower? Wait, tutorial tower? And only 20% of the people survive? Some tough game this must be. The guild leaders shock their host by claiming that yes, he is real, and if he hasn't died yet, then he must be living the good life inside the tower. The very first hunter who fell in with the leaders and never managed to make it out. They detail that, for some bizarre reason, the first hunter was cursed, and no matter what he did, the tower would not let him leave its halls. The escape portal would only send him back to the first floor. When the hostess's shock is over, she asks if they considered him the initial hunter candidate, and the response is a unanimous yes. To the best of their knowledge, he has trained every single ability to the max level, with the sole exception of magic. When pressed with the question, is there a chance that he grew into a really powerful hunter? Are you deaf? The leaders claim that according to the reports, he had cleared the entire tower from floor 1 to 100 within a single day. We fade into the tower and a group of the people trapped inside, screaming for help while running for dear life away from something. We finally get a look at the first hunter as he just casually walks through the crowd like it's a lazy Sunday, facing the boss of the 100th floor, Palak. Online speculation circles around this guy and his borderline mythomania status. On the first floor, he'd hit a monster so hard it no-clipped to level 10. With nothing but a kick, the 100th floor boss is brought to kneel. After a minor psychological break, he simply wonders what ending to have the next time. In the last 12 years, clearing the tower has never really been easier with the wealth of information humanity possessed. Each tower was no different from the last, with 0 content changes. With each tower clear, more techniques and opportunities showed themselves, and because of the internet, nothing is ever really lost. With worldwide strategies freely available, the world record for clears became something of a sport, and in most cases, all citizens are educated in how to clear each and every room there is. Though no matter how much you prepare, you'll never be ready for the real deal. For coming up into the 99th floor, you reach the so-called zenith of fear, Palak, the tower's owner. The final boss. 70 out of 95 people fear this entity, which by this point had claimed innumerable lives. As a man lies on the floor, staring up into the creature's eyes, Palak gets yeeted back by the body of his minion, which was kicked into his royal highness by none other than the advanced player. The boss dies instantly. So much for fearsome fiery fish face. Stepping through the portal yet again, Hyunwoo Kim marks the 1,350th start of his forever climb up the endless tower. After a hot minute on the fact that he just can't seem to get out, we're shown the impressive status window where we see he has max stats and even surpasses the stamina limit. A short flashback to 12 years prior shows us his first clear of the tower, the rejoicing moment when everyone believes they can go home. They make merry and jokes right before Kim passes the portal for the very first time and arrives back on the first floor. After seeing the curse, Kim can't help but rage out of frustration and terror. As he accepted his new reality, another 10 clears of the tower would follow, trying all kinds of cures that never worked. Probably some things in there he's not proud of. Best not to think too hard. As his power increased over and over, not even the dungeon walls became able to hold him. A single swing and there goes a stone pillar. After 5 years of trial and failure, eventually he deduced that there might not be a cure. Eventually, in half resignation of his situation, Kim opted to entertain himself by various means. These included acting as an unscripted NPC and being a military instructor meant to help fresh trainees, but eventually it just became painful to watch them leave. Until today, because as Kim looks down to a new bit of text, his hope sparks a wildfire of emotion. The loop has been removed! With bewilderment building up, Kim slowly realizes he can finally leave. After everything he's done, the spell was broken. With a cry of joy echoing the halls, he kneels down and springs to the very top of the tower, rocking the entire structure. The fastest current time to clear the tower has been officially recorded at 10 months. As the guildmasters explain, most of their concerns lay beyond floor 51, where a high-level, big threat boss appears on every 10th floor above. Sure, a high-level boss. One that totally isn't being mercilessly murdered by the rising Kim as he blasts through floor after floor. In mere minutes, he faces the Balrog in the teeth and turns his head into a fine red mist. Well, what's left of it after this explosion? As the tower opens to the field made around it, the authorities immediately ready a list of survivors who should be coming out. We learn that this has to be the fastest clear in history. As he's asked for his name and congratulated on leaving, Kim yells and cheers with joyous victory that he's finally broken the curse and come home. On checking the list again, the instructor can't seem to find his name until, on a hunch, he checks the first group to ever enter the tower. I'm sure you can guess whose name he finds. 1 week later, knowing the hunter is on the scene at the Korean Tutorial Center to witness the 18th group. They single-handedly reduced the world record by 2 weeks, but the rumor everybody and their mother seems to be interested in is that the mysterious advanced player was present for this. At the Tutorial Tower's VIP waiting room, the guildmasters gathered to discuss if their long-awaited friend has finally rejoined them in reality. They eagerly await the test, noting that Kim would be the exact same as when they last met him, as the tower stops both aging and appetite. Down in the training room, Kim is enjoying himself a bag of chips, while the trainees are preparing for their test. They all move out as the doors open, meeting instructor David, an A-class hunter, pretty high up there, in front of their challenge. As they are soon told, the entire world is viewing this trial. However, they shouldn't be nervous, as compared to the tower itself, this exam would be an absolute cakewalk. As he starts the operation, it is said that there are many difficult challenges that a hunter would face in this world. One of them would be the infamous maze. Living true to its name, the maze is a labyrinth complete with every kind of trap imaginable. The only instruction they are given is to get to the exit, and a 30-second timer begins ticking away. 3, 2, 1. As soon as the exam starts, they rush into the area with great discipline. Kim stays behind and turns to the instructor, asking only a simple question. All he has to do is get to the exit, right? The instructor says yes, but asks if this is how seriously he's going to take the exam. After a pathetic attempt at intimidation on David's part, Kim suggests a bet. 100,000 won says he makes it in 20 seconds. The stakes are raised to 1 million won. Kim quickly runs off to the edge of the door, getting giddy about the fact that David's 1 day of pay and overtime allowance is 10 million won. As his strength rapidly builds with a pulled back fist, David and the world can only watch in glorious wonder as, with one hit, the entire maze has a large hole put through it. I think this player had modded the game a bit too much. One casual stroll later, and our boy has arrived at his forcibly made exit. Well, he did go through the maze, so I guess it counts. Now his only worry is, will they expect compensation for the, damages? It's now 24 hours before the rank assessment assignment. In the office of the live broadcasters, paperwork is being finished up with some gossip about the advanced hunter. Apparently, finding something about him is not so easy as it first appeared. Other than the hunter, would there be anyone else to keep eyes on? Funny you should ask. Yes, there is a backup hunter trained in the traditional martial arts world, Lee Kang-hyun. Seeing him in the dungeons training, we quickly learn he is overconfident in his abilities. While luck is on his side to make it this far, it sure as hell won't be when squaring off against our boy. He doesn't seem to be in it for anything much more than the fame and fortune. At least, not until he saw Kim's final rampage. Defeating Balak in a single hit? Poor dude felt pathetic in comparison. I mean, who wouldn't? Skipping back to the present, he can only stare in awe as, once again, Kim had beaten him in every conceivable way, punching through the maze to walk to the end like a badass. Staff were scrambling left and right to find a camera with a clearer picture of what the hell happened. Kim being put up on the big screen. Moving to a waiting room, Kim is basically half asleep while the rest of the trainees talk about him in hushed whispers and rumors. An intercom lets them know that the order of today's events have been changed, wishing everyone good luck and Godspeed with their trials. Lee vows not to lose to this man. Got some bad news for you, buddy. And we're informed by more jumping perspectives that he was one of the people to come out of the tower with magic. This comes right as he's finishing up the next part of his exam, using lightning from a sword blade to effortlessly beat the living daylights out of hologram goblins. He ends up with a score of 78, which is the highest of all contestants so far. While he's being praised, we finally have Kim heading into the training room with some stares from TVs all around the world. Now it's time to shine. Kim is called into the test room. Walking lazily into the room, he's glared at by Lee Kang-hyun, a silent but extremely jealous rival who believes he deserves all the fame and glory. As the examiners watch with bated breath, the holographic creatures begin to form and the time is set at 120 seconds, 2 minutes. The announcer begins to count down. Almost the instant he hits 0, a goblin raises its club to strike and promptly has its head taken off. The entire broadcast room goes into a frenzy trying to find footage of what happened. And while Kim keeps taking off heads, the examiners are left in a state of shock at his speed and strength. Kim actually goes so fast that he disappears from view and just keeps killing. Even his old friends, the 3 guildmasters who he got sent into the dungeon with, are baffled by the raw power. Kim is casually moving around to each goblin and taking their head off one by one, then finding the next target to rinse and repeat. He's just doing it so fast that the actions manifest instantly. By the time his 2 minutes have ended, Kim has racked up 248 points. Assuming a single point per kill, that means he has defeated almost 3 monsters per second. Talk about insanity. Of course, the clips immediately get uploaded to social media and cause a chaos of replies, news reports, and attention to the subject. Lee doesn't really appreciate having his image be overshadowed by some lazy man like Kim, even breaking his phone by way of rage grip and almost destroying the door to his waiting room. Calm yourself, my boy. Calm. Once done with his little tantrum and the poor wall in front of him, Lee has a mental breakdown because Kim got famous without doing anything. Yeah, sure. Try saying that to his face and see where it gets you. While Lee continues his embarrassing moments, Kim has been called into a meeting with the Deputy Information Officer from the Korean Hunter Association. She introduces herself as Alice and hands Kim a form with a long list of parties that wish to meet with him, also saying welcome back after 12 years trapped in that horrible place. While he looks over them, Alice continues to explain that they are always interested in finding elite hunters, and in working together, the rewards can meet an incredibly high ceiling. When his attention returns, Kim asks if it's her job to transfer contracts to the hunters. Apparently it isn't. Alice wanted to meet personally with the man who basically broke the internet and disturbed the entire world something fierce. She hands him something else as well, a contract from the Ares Guild for him to look over, and possibly agree to. A contract which on the very back page promises in the hundreds of millions in rewards, easily 10 billion won. Kim thinks for a moment before asking the rather blunt question of when their currency fell so much. Alice says not to worry as there's no form of economic crisis or stuff like that, only that land prices went up. She pulls out her phone and shows him what his old home is currently priced at for reference. Formerly 300 million won. It is now skyrocketed to 1.3 billion with inflation. Needless to say that this contract is an immense deal for him, and provided the Aries Guild wants to keep him, they would be willing to double after expiration of the contract along with renewing it. That becomes 20 billion won just for his services. That's very cash money. Kim is smart about this and asks straight up if this is also part of her job, giving him such a contract. Alice admits it's mostly because she has a personal contract, and promised she'd at least pass it on for them. Unfortunately for all parties involved, however, Kim never had any intentions of joining such a thing as a guild. While the rewards would be great if he did, it's just not something that he wants to put himself through. Alice comments that this is a really amusing joke, but it's not. His reasoning is that they would never even think about giving something that big out with zero caveats. The amount of unnecessary boring work that would be foisted onto him would outweigh the benefits. Alice tries in vain to have him reconsider, saying that solo mercenary hunters are people who grew through guilds, and it's impossible for a single hunter to explore a maze with no experience. Did she not see what happened to one of those mazes last video? As much as Alice is peeved, even going far enough to call him arrogant, but giving up and telling him to call the number on her card if his mind changes at all. Kim leaves her and heads back to his old home. While lying down with nothing else to do, he decides to read through the list of people who want to meet him. At the very top, he spots 3 names he recognizes: the guild leaders, his old buddies from the tower. 5 days later, at the end of the new hunter's protection period, he's sitting with the 3 of them in a restaurant. Seokwan Hyung, who is about his age, had become an uncle in looks. Shihyun Kim, who is a crybaby in the tower, is now quite the handsome man, and the adorable little girl he remembers, Soyeon Lee, has become a beautiful woman. They are no longer the people he remembers in vivid detail, but full-grown adults. While exchanging stories and catching up on life, the topic comes up that Kim has actually been famous on TV a number of times. The most famous examples were him doing a weird dance in front of a defeated boss, and the inevitable kicking of a beast from the 1st floor to the 10th. Kim admits that at one point he did try a few challenges, such as defeating the dungeon boss while dancing. They only stare at him out of concern for mental health, before he admits he only tried it out of sheer boredom. I mean, when you're stuck in the same tower for 12 whole years, you don't get a lot to do besides kick the daylights out of stuff, right? Hearing it from him, it's all they can do to believe the stories. But then comes a tidbit of interesting information. He may have a student somewhere out there. His memories of this are quite vague, but it was in some time he'd spent between the 50th and 60th floors. There's a person who had fallen behind their group, so Kim helped them out by raising them as a student for a while. Though, come to think of it, his personality wasn't the best. Nor was his advice. It was lucky that he wore a mask, or he'd totally get sued. After a great day out and catching up with his friends, Kim is back at home in bed, and looking over his status window yet again, a mystery to be solved. Oddly, the limit of the tutorial phase had been removed, as had the 36 from his age, replaced by 24. Guess that his age really didn't go up. Kim wonders though why the text about the loop being removed was still present though. New instructions catch his eye though. They are looking forward to him clearing 3 more dungeon bosses to move on to the next level. Uh-oh. Calling it right now? This isn't going to end well. He's also given a list of the areas to clear, but a knock on the door at this late hour catches his attention. One of the caretakers has come to his door, saying that there are a few people downstairs who want to meet with him. A few people from the infamous Aries Guild. Oh joy. Kim requests that they be told to pound sand, and he's not interested in joining any guild, but the caretaker insists as they won't leave without speaking to him. After getting a rough impression of these people from the way the kind old man acts, Kim decides it may just be best to go down and meet with them to preserve the peace. Upon entering the meeting room, he's greeted by 2 people who look straight out of a mafia movie. One dealmaker sitting in his chair a bit too comfortably, and a big beefy bald bodyguard. Kim immediately reminds them that he's not interested in joining any kind of guild, but the relaxed one has the attitude to greet him anyway and hand a business card. Leader of the personnel section of the Aries Guild, Byung-ho Kang. He asks bluntly if Kim thinks this is okay, to not join any guild whatsoever, much less the Aries Guild. Kim retorts with a simple but straight question of his own. Did they really come at an hour like this to blackmail him? Baldy acts out with a classic "how dare you say that" speech. His boss says to calm down and questions if this decision is really in good judgment. Kim cuts him off as he already has the information on them. The Aries Guild had eaten over half the Korean dungeon zones and were a ragtag group of garbage. They charge people expensive fees for entry tickets, and if you want to start your hunter journey or maintain your livelihood, those expensive entry tickets are the only practical way to go. Or you could join the guild. They were forcing everyone between those 2 options, breaking in the profit from it all. Baldy breaks the table in anger to show the guild's power. Is that supposed to scare him? After destroying the table, Baldy picks it up and throws it to one side. Apparently, Baldy is a hunter whose abilities were determined to be above A rank, and Kong is beginning to wonder if Kim can defeat him. Clearly, this guy hasn't read a single manhwa. Kim has reached the conclusion that these guys are indeed rotten apples down to the core, and steps up to the challenge with nothing but a slipper as his weapon. Hey, come over here. Get hit and come to your senses. Baldy doesn't take the reality check well and blindly attacks, which gets him a slap hard enough to put his body into a wall, destroying the slipper in the process. A small price to pay for putting a pompous idiot right where he belongs, 6 feet sideways. When the rubble and dust clears, Kong stares in absolute terror as the biggest, toughest man in their guild hangs limply from his position between the remains of the rock mural. Kong had really thought that bringing the muscle along would intimidate a man like this, but it ended up utterly backfiring. All he could really do at this point is stand frozen with fear, wondering what the hell went wrong, and how it all could have come to this. How could such a strong hunter even exist without the use of magic? Kong is broken from his stupor as Kim approaches, stating that the one thing above all else that he really hates in this world is when he gets threatened. Kim heads out to Shiyun's place to relax a little bit and blow off the steam while enjoying some strawberries. Shiyun warns him that it's best not to be on the end of a grudge with these guys, as they seem to have a nasty habit of killing people within the mazes, where no witnesses are around. While he's present, Kim also starts to gather information on these dungeons that he's supposed to be going into, asking Shiyun if he knows anything about the Institute of Adoran. The Institute of Adoran is a C-rank dungeon in which Kim has business. That is the only explanation his friend, Guildmaster Shiyun, gets when asking why he wants information on it. While Kim enjoys some strawberries, Shiyun explains that the Ares Guild owns that particular dungeon, and are abusing their rights to block entry to non-guild members. Kim shouts that this is absurd and asks what the government is doing to prevent this. Aren't there any antitrust laws or something of the like to stop them? The blunt answer is no. Neither the government nor politicians pay much attention to hunters, as they don't have any say in it. For example, they cannot predict how many people pass through the tower and become hunters. Kim reminds him that they also kill people in the dungeons. Why isn't this considered outright murder? Because it is seen as accidental, explains Shiyun. And if you look at the Ares Guild as an outsider, they are a new industry, one that dutifully pays their taxes. This is a rather sticky situation in that the authorities can't really meddle with the work of the hunters from outside without stirring the hornet's nest. Kim stands and says that it should be fine if he could just enter secretly somehow. This would be no problem. Shiyun reminds him that they are guarding the entrances 24 hours a day, so it will be practically impossible for someone not to notice a random hunter walking around. Is that so? Then that leaves him no choice. He'll just have to take the bull by the horns and make his own way in. Uh-oh. He's warned that this would end with a hostile relationship with Ares, but, well, if you look at last chapter, I think it's a bit late for that. We now jump to the Ares Guild HQ, where higher-ups are discussing their expansion of the guild into China. The Pado Guild has evidently become a nuisance, leaving the estimated time of expansion at 5 months. Our first look at one of their higher-ups, branch manager Sunwoo Yu, is very telling of the Ares mindset, as he says that you don't need to be faster than the dungeon boss to survive. You only need to be faster than the person in front of you. Not a guild I'd ever join. Next on their list comes the expected abilities of Kim Hyun-woo. Sunwoo does a double take on the clipboard and asks if this is some joke. He's assured that this report was conducted based on the footage from the tutorial zone, using the analytics machine introduced on a trial basis for all the calculation. Sunwoo asks if the machine has a screw loose, and while the director of personnel thought the same thing, no matter how big the error range is, it always stays within 1 rank by design. They did try to recruit him before finding this, but we all know how that went. Sunwoo says to forget trying to recruit him, as someone like him will only end up causing more problems than he's worth. While it would be a good thing for the guild to recruit him in the short term, Kim may not be satisfied with whatever he gets, and that could be a threat to Sunwoo's position. Rather than recruit such an unruly man, it would be better to give him a so-called injury. The director understands the meaning and vows to take care of it. As he's exiting the room, one of his subordinates rushes up to tell him of an important problem they've had at the Institute of Adoran. I wonder who that could be. At the entrance to said dungeon, the guards are rejecting a cute girl who has no ticket even as she pleads with them to enter. There's no other place to hunt in the area and they know it. The guard approaching her says that he's an oppa of principles, but when he sees her, his heart gets a bit weaker, and he'll let her in for her phone number. Ew. This is where they notice Kim walking up to the gate. Kim tells him that his business lays inside the dungeon, and the guard starts to get annoyed. I'll get the popcorn. The guy tells Kim that if he's going to go mad, do it somewhere else. Kim is silent for a few seconds before taking off his shoe. uh-oh, and saying they don't really get it. Even though he's talking peacefully, they just don't understand. He tells the big guard to come here with a smile. The guard is now getting agitated, but before he can finish his sentence, off he goes over the gate from a slipper slap. The remaining guards just look between Kim and the dust cloud behind him, trying his best to process what the heck just happened. With his meathead of a friend now collapsed into some dented metal fence, Kim appears behind him like it's nothing, wanting the guy's shoes. The poor guy doesn't really have a choice in the matter and hands them over to Kim before things get ugly. Our protag remarks at how light these things are, despite being made almost entirely of metal. The guy had paid 5 million won to put weight reduction on them. Oof. Meanwhile, at the Seoul Guild headquarters, Shion is getting an earful from one of Kim's other old friends in the group, Soyeon Lee. The woman is worried sick about Kim going in there alone and chastises Shion for letting him walk out of there. But he retorts by asking how the hell he was supposed to stop him from walking out, especially when he told Kim the exact same things. Does Yeon think that she could have stopped him in the same situation? She goes silent for a moment upon realizing that he's right. You think? I mean, you try stopping a freight train. Yeon quickly becomes concerned about the Aries Guild next, as Kim already has some bad blood with them because of the beatdown he gave their chief of staff last episode. But Shion couldn't get more detailed info than that. He knows that if Kim keeps still, there wouldn't be a problem. However, the moment there is a breakdown in relationship, Kim gets very angry at the opponent and shows his rather twisted personality. He knows why it's twisted the way it is, but in essence, thinks that they shouldn't really need to worry about Kim if what he told them is true. Yeon asks what he's talking about, and Shion reveals Kim's ability grades to her. The woman stumbles back a little in sheer shock, slowly processing the info she was just given. Going back into the depths of the Aderon Institute, we join a small group of hunters looking to take down the boss Aderon as they develop a strategy. While they do this, Kim casually strolls through the hallways, encountering the big scary monster. They watch helplessly as it notices Kim and is in joy at finding a new research subject. Creepy as heck, but alright. The boss grinds his giant scalpel against the needle of the syringe strapped to his arm, and Kim simply warns him not to do that. Aderon only has a second to ask what he's talking about, before the boss's head is taken clean off by a single kick. Kim looks to his menu, which confirms the kill of the first required boss, while the group of hunters nearby watch out of bewilderment as the advanced player from the rumors walks away. Somewhere in the basement of the Aries Guild at the executive department's office, management department head Chun Myung-woo gets a surprise visit from the director of personnel. As Chun looks through the file given, he's impressed by Kim's ability ranks and asks if he truly has this much. Director Sun-woo tells him that this is just a temporary analysis, and it's not 100% accurate yet, but it's still incredible, and the strength of a monster. Chun asks if he just has to recruit Kim. Instead, his orders are to give the protagonist a proper injury, though even if Chun does what he wants, there won't be a problem. On further pressing, Sun-woo says that because Kim rooted through their exclusive dungeon and smacked up the guards, the Aries pride was wounded quite a bit. Chun pipes up that since it'll be hard to give someone like Kim an injury, they would do better taking care of the problem discreetly and not involving the branch manager. He has to concentrate on the expansion in China after all. The executive department is also pulling personnel out of the country because of the Pado Guild. Since it was founded 2 years prior, the Pado have monopolized up to 50% of China's current dungeons. Within only 4 years of coming out of the tower, they had made the guild huge, with the top members all boasting monstrous abilities. The most surprising thing is that the guild leader, someone ranked 5th from all S-rank hunters worldwide, is someone who has yet to be identified. Anyway, they shouldn't worry about Kim right now because the executive department doesn't have the men to give him a proper injury. Instead, they will send a carefully selected expert to handle the issue neatly. Meanwhile, Kim is fiddling with the new phone Shion got for him, oogling at the modern technology and how it changed over 12 years. He takes a picture as well, admiring the crystal clear image on screen while Shion wonders if buying him something like this was a good idea. He'd been fiddling with it for the last 3 hours, now playing a mobile game to pass the time. But on a lighter note, looking at the Forest Village dungeon that Kim mentioned, Shion's very own Seoul Guild is the one managing it. At least this time it will be an easy trip to get in. There probably won't be any boss monster though. Kim has to do a double take. What does he mean there's no boss monster? Shion explains that unlike in the tower, monsters in dungeon just spawn endlessly from predetermined locations. If you kill a boss, however, it takes them quite a lot of time to regenerate. While different for every dungeon, it takes about a month for the forest boss to respawn. But since they caught the boss about 4 weeks prior, he should be up and at him in about 2 to 3 days. Annoyed with the wait, Kim asks if Shion managed to get any info about the other dungeon, the Visible Swamp. But unfortunately, that dungeon is held exclusively by the Aries Guild, If Kim looked properly, he may be able to find some information regarding the place. Xion also asks when Kim plans to visit the Hunters Association to register his rank. When Kim asks what it is, the guildmaster explains that it's to receive benefits, accommodations, and their partner programs. You also get paid from it, but have to accomplish something at least once every 2 to 3 months to keep the registration. If you get to the top of the chain at S rank, you get around 700 million won a month. Kim and Xion step into the Hunters Association building, finally heading to the ability measurement branch to reveal the advanced player's stats to the world. As the investigator hands Kim the measurement device, a small hologram appears next to him, calculating the grades. As the machine finishes its work, Kim sighs in relief and turns to give the staff his tool back, but has to step back in surprise as the guy screams in shock from the readings. Within a mere matter of hours, word is already out about his ability grades, and the internet is eating it up. People are in awe, saying he's practically equal to the first rank hunter. Kim is baffled at how information gets out so quickly in the modern era, different from the 12 years ago when he lived on the outside. Not even a few hours have passed, and the internet is chewing itself to pieces over his rankings. Xion mentions how he's the single most talked about person these days, so it's not like there's anything they can really do about it. Ever since he turned the Ares dungeon on its head, a lot of groups have been keeping a very close eye on him. While Kim doesn't seem to care all that much about how he's shaken up the world, Xion advises him to stay on his toes as the Ares Guild will have collected all that information on him by now. He needs to be careful from now on as the Ares Guild are really dangerous people. Meanwhile, Kim is trying not to laugh at something on his phone screen like a child. Gonna be harder than he thought. Poor Xion. After an awkward moment of silence, Kim asks why Xion is escorting him around. Doesn't he have things to do? I mean, Seokwon-hyung and Soyeon, the other guild masters, look very busy, but he seems to have plenty of free time. Xion seems slightly annoyed by the question but answers it anyhow. Indeed, he is also a guild master and has his own responsibilities, but he had made extra time just for his old friend. Deep in the Ares Guild's basement of horrors, 2 senior men are having a detailed look into Kim's rank, and one is practically fainting on sight. The chief of their executive department says that he's a pure-blooded monster with ranks that high. No wonder the branch manager above them both wants this guy dead. The executive chief tells his friend who looms over the document not to worry so much. They called Chun Kang-shin, a massive mercenary who will soon be S rank in China. It's the perfect counter to someone like the advanced player, right? Kim remarks at how easy it was to get into the forest village, walking with Xion and a young party member through the eerily moonlit woods. Pretty soon the boss would regenerate, and they would have a good fight on their hands taking it down. Oh please, we know how this is gonna end. But unbeknownst to Kim and friends, a 4th person is tailing them through the area, one with a devious, devilish smile of pearly whites. Kim turns around to the newbie, completely missing the creepy guy, and the boy introduces himself as Gamun Park. He's the supporter there with them to pick up any drops that the boss fight may yield, as everything can be sold for straight cash. Depending on current value, it's around 3,000 won per item. Kim asks where the hell drops are used and gets a look of pity after. Figures someone like him who's always carefree couldn't understand. The drops are used in weapon and armor forging. Park pipes up with the question to the player himself. Would Kim mind if he did a recording of this boss takedown? Kim says yes, he'll allow it for a ratio split of 8 to 2 on the ad revenue. Evil bastard. While they crawl the forest looking for the boss room, Xion hands Kim a map to take with him. Kim only looks at it while his friend explains that the forest village is no different than a maze. Discarding the map, Kim yells at Park to make a good recording of this and raises his fist toward the trees directly ahead, where a glowing purple light is being emitted from. With a drawn back arm and mighty swing, Kim punches with all muscle and destroys everything in his path with one swing. Goodbye trees, hello easy way out. At the end of his punch, the boss monster, the twin-headed ogre, awaits at the dungeon's finale. Kim excitedly makes a run for the boss while both Xion and Park thinks he's absolutely mad, both in strength and personality. He just made his way all the way through the maze to the boss area with one punch. Can you get any stronger? And as per usual for our boy, Kim leaps through the air like it's another Tuesday morning and one-shots the boss with a massive kicked blow to the head. He stands atop the defeated boss, having done all of this in under a minute. The wind from his hit blows leaves asunder all around the area, and behind both Park and Xion, the stranger sits atop the branches of a tree in silence, just watching menacingly. Returning to his masters in the Ares Guild, Chun Kang-shin is questioned on Kim's performance and if he's really as good as the rumors say. Short answer, yes. Yes, he is. Pure physical strength without the use of magic nor skills, he managed to beat a boss single-handedly. Chun actually admires him on some level. but in true antagonistic fashion, also sees a good opportunity to prove himself. Why do you gotta be like this? Anything that Kim isn't capable of, he wants to know. The executive chief informs him that according to their intelligence, Kim will be going to the Visible Swamp next, an Ares-managed dungeon. Chun sees this as the perfect chance to jump on and prepare a little welcome for him. True to word, Kim arrives at his final destination the next morning. This is the last boss he needs to hunt to fulfill the list requirement. Upon entry, he gets a really unpleasant feeling, almost as if someone is waiting for him. But a text from Soyeon is enough to distract him from it. Kim shouldn't forget what she told him yesterday about Ares, and above all else, he shouldn't stir any trouble. Flashing back to yesterday, these perspective skips are a pain to keep track of. Kim is in a restaurant with his lovely friend Soyeon, the blue-haired beauty who treats him like an older brother. She point-blank asks why he wants to go to the Ares-managed territory, only getting the reply that he has business to take care of. When pushed for more information, Kim gets a little nervous at her tone and says she'll know when the time comes. Yeah, trust me boys, you don't want to piss off a busy woman like this. Soyeon hopes to dear God he isn't doing this just to poke the Ares Guild where the sun don't shine. Kim concedes a bit and says yes, that too, just a little bit. Yeon's adorable face goes from strict and worried mother to defeat in seconds, as she seems to realize that she just won't win while arguing with him. But whatever he does, his trip should be hasty unless he wants to butt heads with the guild on their own turf. About that. Standing in front of the advanced player while hurling insults and shivering, the remaining Ares Gate guards try to scare him off with the guild name. Kim is really getting annoyed at this unchanging repertoire by now. The same arrogance, the same annoying pattern. When the members of the guild wet themselves in fear or have a midlife crisis, they yell their influential name like it's a get out free card. It's getting all too familiar from beginning to end and grinding his nerves. Out of sheer arrogance, the guy attacks the protagonist. It ends as well as you think. Kim makes his way into the swamp from there, and waiting for him quite a way in was the final boss he needed, the Mega Alligator. Kim remembers something else Yeon told him during the outing. Parts of this beast, namely the leather and teeth, sell for a high amount as they possess anti-magic qualities. He easily ignores the alligator's attempts to intimidate him, and one punch later, it survives? Congratulations, bro. Upon hearing that he intends to take its skin and teeth, the boss is having none of this garbage and makes a run for its life. Unfortunately for it, Kim enjoys a bit of torture and swings the poor gator around like a cartoon character. As it hits the mountainside, the gator decides it's had enough of this and turns to Kim with full force to roll intimidation again. It fails abysmally. Kim is excited that it wants to challenge him, but when moving to dodge the jaws of this gigantic beast, he can't move. Some kind of glowing red chain appears around his legs, locking his legs together. Chon whispers to himself, "Die, Kim Hyun-woo." Kim dodges the attack regardless of the chains, jumping out of its way with a hairbreadth to spare. He asks aloud what the hell these stupid chains are, and gets an answer from the one who cast them. They are his perfect skill. The man only introduces himself as someone important sent by the Ares Guild to observe him. 2 and 2 fit together, letting Kim easily figure out this is an attempted assassination. Chun is really impressed with how Kim swung around the alligator like it was a toy, even more so by the beheading of the twin-head ogre from the forest village. However, there isn't a damn thing he can do against these invulnerable magic chains. No matter what Kim does, the chain on his arms doesn't move at all. If Kim wants to get out of the magic chains, he needs stronger magic than the A rank that Chun is. But Kim has zero magic because of all the time spent in the tower. For a split second, it seems like Kim is finally getting concerned at his predicament. But a second or two later, he just seems confused that the guy is talking to him. He's the protagonist. There isn't any bull tactic you can pull on plot armor. Good luck. Everything Kim says seems to peeve off his jailer more. Chun eventually tries to rationalize his praise lax behavior by chalking it up to calm fever. Kim is trying to act calm to look tough and collected, but surely even the great advanced player has to be worried at this point. Oh boy. Chun gets sick of his attitude at this point and just goes for the throat with his blade, using both high tier skills, poison and explosion, which do absolutely freaking nothing. Called it. Kim is just tired of this garbage by this point, so when Chun attacks again, he practically walks into the waiting fist, which sends him into a really somehow sturdy tree at about Mach 9. If only they made dungeon walls out of that. Chun had made the most rookie mistake of his life, not tying up Kim's whole body with the chains. It seems the expert mercenary didn't expect something so simple to ruin his chances. Devil in the details, brother. The chain suddenly came loose partway through Chun's attack, giving Kim more than enough leeway to counterattack. As they fade from existence, Kim kicks the assassin straight in the stomach and uproots the poor tree while doing so. How hard is that damn wood? He picks up the fallen tree with Chun still embedded in the bark and asks him, "Since you came to kill me, you've made your resolve, right?" The poor alligator is drifting along in the swampy waters, still reeling from the hits it was given earlier. A shadow falls over the waters, and as it looks up with eyes of abstract pain, the entire tree lands on its back and utterly destroys what is left of the health bar. The gator floats up from the water, utterly defeated from the force of the impact. I wonder how the damage stats are calculated. A notification tells Kim that he's completed the required hunting for his attestation, and the lowest rank is being unlocked. Back in the Ares Guild, it comes as a large shock to the executive chief that Chun Kang is dead in the water. The tree he was pinned to had sank into the swamp before they could get to him, leaving nothing behind to confirm a corpse. The monsters within the swamp probably ate him without leaving a trace. If Kim Hyun-woo managed to beat someone like Chun Kang, who is soon to be an S-rank hunter in China, all he can say to this development is the S word. But I don't fancy getting demonetized. YouTube, please. Now resting at ease and at home, Kim calls upon his status window to reveal his new skill, Status Authority, at the lowest rank. The system is apparently inviting him to something. It will call upon him at midnight that evening, so he'd better go prepared. Shion comes home and Kim asks him to stay where he is for a moment, deciding no time like the present to test this brand new skill. The whoosh, an info screen about Shion pops up and tells Kim everything he already knows. He quietly looks at it for a moment before going into full-on rage about how useless this is, scaring poor Shion within an inch of his life. After apologizing and making it up to his friend, Kim has no choice but to sit and wait for the system to summon him at midnight. Maybe he can finally get some detailed answers about what the hell had kept him within the tower for all these years. And right on cue, as the midnight bell tolls, the room blacks out and Kim is summoned with a huge flash of light. Kim looks around the room at its white brick walls, before inevitably noticing the person sitting across from him. The girl gives him a cursory monotone greeting, stating that it is nice to finally meet the Guardian. Her name is AV, and she would be his assistant from then on. Okay then? The girl states that as long as he is alive, they would be seeing each other often. After waiting a minute or two for her to say something, he's getting a bit annoyed. I mean, they could just sit here and stare at each other until one of them drops dead, but Kim has a better idea. Cake anyone? Anyway, he asks if she's going to give him an explanation or not, but AV seems more confused than anything. Kim springs out of his chair and point blank asks if she invited him there to tell him something or what. AV says that she can give answers but needs a question. So Kim thinks for a little while. He then prompts her for the name of who trapped him in the darned tower. AV only takes a second to reply, stating his status scan is too low level for her to answer. Every question he asks gets the same reply. Basically, access denied. In an eventual pang of anger, he smashes her on the head with his fist. Deny this, you little annoyance. Understandably, Kim throws a flurry of questions at her since she's not telling him anything. Surely she didn't bring him here to just mess with him, right? For her sake, I hope so. She angrily reiterates the point that he's too low to get those answers, but before he can take another swing, AV is finally useful in telling Kim how to raise his level. As of present, he is nothing but a temporary guardian. In order to get the job, he will wait 5 days until a rift has opened in the city. And the deepest part of this rift is a key that will prove his worth. If he can get it, he will finally start receiving more worthwhile answers. Kim is sent back home with this new knowledge and the will to do whatever it takes to get the answers he seeks. Asking his friends about it the next day, all three guildmasters seem shocked to heck and gone that he'd want to know about something as cataclysmic as a rift. The answer he gets chills Kim to the core. A rift means impending doom. After another embarrassing defeat, the executive chief and personnel director have no choice but to report the loss of Chun Kang to the branch manager, who has broken a table in frustration. The manager seems to understand that although they sent out the strongest person they had, Kim was just too good for him. The executive chief can't be faulted for this. So instead, he turns to the personnel director and says, I quote, "If there's a way to make this man pay, then spare no expense to make it happen." The director is to find his manager some mercenaries, ones who are stronger than the previous guy. He really seems to want Kim dead. Guess a blow to their pride was the push over the edge this guy needed. And when he's finished with Kim, they will turn their attention to the Pado Guild's massed special forces, who have been removing Ares members from China left, right, diagonal even. While these plans are made, Kim and friends are out enjoying a nice meal. The precursor to him asking about the rift. Sokwon-han, one of the guild masters, is showing Kim a little ring that is worth 2 million won, about 1.8 million US dollars. The tiny ring is an artifact, taken from one of the labyrinths around the city. The difference is that dungeons provide special crafting materials to forge things, or a place to farm magical stones, whereas labyrinth treasures from vaults are already enchanted and powerful. Similar to what you'd find in a game. Thank you, Captain Obvious. As if the menus all manhwa weren't enough of a giveaway. The status scan can also check this little ring, but as we've come to expect from it, nothing useful is gleamed as everything is redacted. When Kim is done with everything, he may want to head down into a dungeon to get a few pieces of his own like this. After ordering one of everything off of the menu, guess his power isn't the only thing that's endless, we go full circle as he questions them on what the heck a rift is. Essentially, it's a great canyon that opens and spews out endless monsters until its boss is defeated. The people in both China and Germany who have witnessed such a thing aptly call it Hell's Gate. He then asks them what do they think would happen if a rift suddenly appeared in Korea. Everyone freezes while thinking of an appropriate answer. They could in theory stop it, but even a lowly C-rank rift would turn the entire area around itself into a desolate wasteland. A few guilds would join theirs in an attempt to fend off the creatures, but the Ares guild would likely send a group of nobodies and say they were helping. Kim straight up tells his friend to eat a lot and rest for the next 4 days. They look at him concerned, but only get a reply that they'll know what he's talking about soon. And sure enough, just as AV had predicted, a rift begins to open 4 days later in the middle of their city's large airport. A plane makes it into the sky just in time to avoid the calamity, but those on the ground aren't so lucky as beasts of all sizes begin to howl from below. An acolyte glides through dark stone hallways lit by purple flames, headed for the chamber of his master. Upon arrival, he only mentions that the 9th class has finally awoken. Not fully, but it will not be long now until they take on their specific duties. His master seems pleased to see what Kim Hyun-woo can do to amuse them. As the crowds fall to the airport floor from the intense earthquake, the runway splits in half, pouring out monster hordes the likes of which Korea has never seen. A news chopper takes the scene live, as first hunter groups arrive to deal with the imminent threat. Many tremble in fear before the might of these large, scary beings, but commanders yell to not falter, as that will be the deciding factor that may get you killed. A rookie stares in fear at the wolf being before him, prompting the leading officer to restrain it with a skill and eliminate the beast. The hunters fend them off as long as they're able, but outnumbered by 10 to 1. A scream draws everyone's attention as a giant red skeleton with glowing eyes and a weapon walks out of the destroyed airport, raising its club to strike. The monster is ranked A+, and for good reason. With a single swing, one of the shield bearers is sent crashing into a nearby car, not only destroying it, but allowing the beast to get closer. It raises its club for a second strike, and has its head split in two by Kim, who lands as if he were just on a quick afternoon walk. The monster's carcass begins to disappear, and the commander runs to his fallen comrade, thanking whatever deity internally that he's alive and saved by advanced player. The cavalry had arrived. Everyone ogling at him doesn't seem to realize that there are still monsters present and surrounding them. The group quickly defends themselves while Kim remarks how hideous it is, seeing this many monsters in one place. While he should really go to the end and take care of this once and for all, he can give the runts a hand first. With brute strength, he lifts the skeleton's fallen weapon, smashing monsters left and right, again leaving the groups in awe of his pure power and ability. He quickly makes his way inside the airport, leaving the rest of these monsters to the defenders while he tackles the source. They aren't too pleased at being left behind, but have no choice except to hold out for support. The group is quickly getting exhausted and there doesn't seem to be an end in sight for them. But very shortly do they find an experienced swordsman cutting through wave after wave of these creeps. Shiyun and the Soul Guild have arrived, and he isn't the only one to bring backup. Lightning magic rips and tears through the ranks behind the group, the beautiful Yun making an appearance with orbs of electricity at her command. And last but certainly not least, the Uncle Sokwon also arrives with a battalion of knights to back them up. The leaders look around for Kim, but are quickly informed that he's made his way inside already. With a mighty roar, Sokwon charges into battle, and rams through the nearest enemies with blinding speed. Despite being dressed as a block of tungsten, the monsters that come for Shiyun quickly find themselves without blood nor limbs, and none dare approach Yunli as she deep fries anything around her in thick coats of lightning and thunder. Meanwhile, Kim is wondering about the best way to get down into the depths of this Grand Canyon, while monsters just keep climbing the cliff face from a thin ramp. Seeing a nearby car, Kim goes over and simply rips its doors off their hinges, using these as improvised shields to survive the landing. He runs forward and leaps feet first into the endless void below, landing on a few poor goblins and other monsters in the process. Having way too much fun with his power, he proceeds to absolutely wreck everything standing in his way, smacking them headlong off the cliffside and back from whence they came. Begone, demons! When one of them hits the ground not too far down and the thud echoes upward toward him, Kim throws the doors away and just keeps leaping down deeper into the void. He finally hits pay dirt by landing on a small mountain of corpses of the monsters he'd thrown back into the depths of the Hellgate. Stepping down from this, he finally meets the boss of this little area, the Crimson Demon, Arukiru, and immediately spots the little key jangling at his side. What Kim doesn't expect is this demon being able to dodge his hits. The first one utterly fails and he gets yeeted back into the wall for the first time in the series. When he looks up, the demon is already closing in with a striking punch. He dodges the attack and kicks this shiny red idiot in the head, sending it reeling backward. It tries to say something in what seems to be frustration, but nothing intelligible comes out. Kim just assumes it's the same old stuff they always tout and goes in for a knockout punch. The demon catches his fist and absorbs the impact, using it to spiral Kim back into the wall again. This beast is much stronger than any other monsters he's encountered, and it has a special name attached to it, Climber. It looks like all the stops would have to be pulled for this one, and he'd have to use a skill we've never seen before. Standing up, Kim grabs his attention and goes into a new kind of pose. Back in the tower, he had tried everything there was to escape, including the corny trope of finding enlightenment via martial arts. Say hi to Jinho for me. It was all stuff he had learned from movies, comics, and anime in the end, so it was probably all garbage. But in the end, the stats he'd gained from the tower turned what was fake into something very real and very scary. Once the body has stopped moving, Kim relaxes and scratches his head, glad that nobody was around to see such a cringe-worthy thing. He'd yelled the attack name like something you'd see in a comic or anime. Oh, very funny. Some things are best left forgotten, it seems. Picking up the fallen key, a status window appears, informing him that the initiation is complete. Kim is now a full guardian and would be invited, if you even want to call it that, to the administration office again in about 4 days. Then he finally hears it. A small buzzing sound very high above him. A red light blinks in through the haze, and a small camera drone flies around above him, taking a live video back to the Ares headquarters. The branch manager frowns at the footage and his colleagues, asking if they really think this is just A grade. Alice says that the documents in front of him are not just analysis results, but the official measurements of his skills from their branch of the Hunters Association. The manager slams his fist down and says they still don't get it. This guy is beyond what they had thought possible thus far. Taking a moment to collect himself, the manager then turns to a Mr. Yu and tells him to release something special immediately upon completion. Even men like him have their limits. The next day at the Hunters Association main branch, journalists are shooting pictures of the stage, and the advanced player receiving an honorary award from the Minister of National Defense. This is supposed to recognize any efforts he made in helping end the Rift crisis. But of course, Kim doesn't bother changing his clothes for the occasion. He's standing up there on stage in front of his nation in a tracksuit and slippers. Props to this guy for the confidence. Upon receiving his gifts, they're asked if Hunter Kim needs some new clothing. Kim looks down, looks the minister straight in the eyes, and bluntly says, "Don't worry about it." Handling the gracious gifts from the minister and closing the case once more, Kim asks if he is free to go now, and without missing a beat, he leaps off the stage and into the crowds. Paparazzi capture everything on camera. The minister is absolutely furious at the ignorance and bliss of this little runt with no manners, but it's not like anything could stop him. Meanwhile, somewhere in the outskirts of the capital of China, Beijing, in the heart of the Pado Guild, who I will now refer to as the Mighty Ruler Guild, someone watches Kim's footage with a shaking body, and surprise evident in their stance. The movements he uses are recognized by this person with shock in their beautiful crimson eyes. The leader of the Mighty Rulers asks in admiration for his name, to which a servant replies, Kim Hyun-woo, who had recently escaped from the tutorial tower located somewhere within Korea. She repeats the name on her tongue and instructs her servant to find out everything there is about this man. Every detail of his past to the present day. Leave nothing out. Creepy stalker lady detected. While this mysterious woman is climbing out the bath, another subordinate comes to bring her news of their subjugation of the Weon Guild. They had successfully taken control of all the regions in the southern region of China. There had been some conflict with the Ares Guild, and regrettably, one of their executive members was captured. Rather bluntly, The woman says that anyone captured who could not make their way back alone was not a valued part of the mighty rulers. They would need to get a move on though. It was shameful that they were finding it so hard to capitalize the dungeons within their own darn territory. But these were small prices to pay to keep her oath. Crazy alert. Back in Korea, Yeon sighs in exasperation while lecturing Kim on just how famous he's become. He's quite the public figure by now as So-kwon laughs, though Shi-hyun tempers the statement with an ode of caution. His predicament and current enemies, the biggest of which are the public media and the Aries Guild, should not be taken lightly. The headlines of almost every tabloid out in Korea have the same tune: him. Kim's ears quickly ring with reasons why he can't just grab his awards from a ceremony and walk out like that, courtesy of Yeon and Shi-hyun. He brazenly shrugs them off because it's not like he'd ever be seeing such people again. He's just gonna live the way he wants and let that be the end of it. I think he's been in that tower a bit too long. This isn't the early 2000s anymore. Yeon facepalms with the little sister disappointment complex, while Kim stands and stretches his legs a bit, telling them that he's gotta run as he has a date. No, you freaking don't. While they're all surprised that Hyunwoo has friends, let alone a girlfriend, oof. In reality, he's escaping before his forced teleportation to AV. With a giant burst of glowing light from the alleyway he stands in, Kim is brought once again in front of his little annoyance of an assistant who greets him better this time. It seems she's learned a few manners. The good news for him is that his rank did raise from collecting the key. The bad news, it went from lowest rank to low. Poor AV is the klutz who has to explain that his information access has stayed the same. Like we saw last time, Kim is very unappeased that he can't get any answers. AV quickly explains that this isn't her doing. She's only telling him what she was ordered to. When asked who the fluff taught her such things, she replies that it was the system itself, while his abilities have pretty much stayed the same. That rage isn't good for your heart, my bro. AV is now to tell him what he could do to raise his level further. Now that he is done proving himself, Kim will have to stop all the climbers of the tower. He asks what they are because he'd never heard anything about them in his 12-year timeout. But AV, much to his surprise, is not referencing the tutorial tower. No, instead she is talking about the Tower of 12, of which Earth makes up the 9th layer. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, Kim Hyunwoo is now an official superhero. His task as a guardian is to defend the Earth itself from the climbers. Oh heck, things just got real. And the protagonist is not very happy with this development. I mean, who would be? Yet again, he's been told to be a good boy, keep quiet, and do as he's told. The only thing he wants is to get back at whoever it was that trapped him in that tower. So why does the list of stuff he has on the to-do list keep increasing? But if he doesn't destroy the climbers, the 9th layer will be completely destroyed, and he will perish along with the home he loves. When Kim straight up asks if he's to just follow orders, AV backpedals and tries to pick her words carefully. I doubt she wants another smash on the head. He tells her to stop mincing up the wording and give it to him. The tiny girl builds up a bit of her courage that comes with her rank, assertively speaking his name, but she very quickly finds this a bad idea by his lack of any fear. So instead she tries another angle, saying the fact that they selected him as a guardian was for his own good in the end, and there would be rewards alongside his achievements, increasing in value the more climbers are defeated. Kim takes a pause to think, calming down to rational levels for a little. Eventually he pulls the smart move and asks what level his status scan needs to be for the information he wants. AV answers immediately that he needs to be at least a level of high. I sincerely hope that means 420 points. And by taking down the climbers, he'll eventually get where he wants to go. There's just a few extra steps. And while AV cannot answer exactly how many he'd need to take down, about 5 high-level climbers will get him the information. The Crimson Demon he fought was likely a low-level climber. After being returned to the city with his knowledge, Kim thinks back on all he's just learned. Our man here don't care about no world that needs saving, nor Earth existing inside the tower. All he needs to know is that he can work his way up and kick the daylights out of whatever put him in the torturous tutorial zone. He's broken from those thoughts by a phone call from Soyeon. The beauty tells him to turn on the TV and flip to a news channel. Right the fluff now. He's in big trouble, for according to the channel he's turned into, Kim has apparently murdered a valued member of the infamous Aries Guild. Oh, you sons of... The next morning they are at Sokwon's place, and the non-stop buzzing of their phones amazes our big hero. Yeon asks loudly what he thinks caused all the commotion, as he was already famous from the 12-year tower escape. Entire countries started paying attention after he single-handedly cleared the rift. And with the accusations of murder now coming out, Yeon has been anxious since he first mentioned crossing the Aries. When he makes the mistake of telling her to calm down, the woman just goes into even more of a rage, telling him he's acting as if he were still in the darn tower. This thing ain't on autopilot, son. Kim quietly feels like he's getting scolded by his wife, even though he's never had one, let alone a girlfriend. Told you so. Considering for a moment how much she worries over him, the man gets some serious nerve and asks, I quote, "Do you like me?" Someone get the blast shields, because this woman is about to go nuclear. And right on cue, there's the lightning. She's done playing with him and dares the man to make one more joke like that. Kim does the smart thing and backs down from the raging blue beauty, finally realizing he'll get killed for saying stuff so freely. Shion stands up and grabs his phone, showing just how many missed calls he's gotten by this point. Even online search results have pushed the 4 of their names to the top. He shares one of the various articles on the subject, talking about how the Ares Guild had sustained victims and damage with the fall of Chungkang. Kim still can't understand the glare his old friend is giving him. At this point, Kim asks Seokwon what time the press conference will be ready, and he says that they could start in about 30 minutes if he's ready. This shocks Shion and Yeon back to life, who ask what the heck he's planning to do with the gathered massive media outlets. Kim looks at them a little dumbfounded and asks if they really think that low of him, that he'd bring together something this big without any sort of plan. They really show their colors here with details of what he may do. It's a bit depressing for the poor guy, but in all fairness, he did start a personal grudge with the most powerful guild in Korea. Back in the Korean HQ of said guild, the branch manager drums his fingers on a table. Everything is going according to plan thus far. The media lapped up the false story they sent out with no questions asked, and the news covered the incident last night on national TV. As an added bonus, there will be a live press conference streamed by Kim himself sometime soon that day. But judging by the current public reception, even Hyunwoo won't find it easy to wiggle his way out of the public rage. The manager smirks to himself. Finally, they have the upper hand on this menace. The only way to keep it is to remain one step ahead of him at all times, as he who strikes first will win the fight. Sitting in the center seat of attention, a room of reporters stares at his lips, awaiting the reaction they hope for. A few questions are yelled as a start, such as why he attacks the Ares Guild and what he thinks about them. In a little twist, Kim loudly and almost proudly states that he doesn't know how things like this work, so he'll just do it his own way. The first guy he answers rather bluntly. He feels, even the translator couldn't get that part, apparently. Another asks if it's true that he murdered an Ares Guild member, and surprisingly, he answers truthfully with yes, though he'd like to explain himself before they cast harsh judgment. To be honest, he's not even aware of why such a guild as the great and powerful Ares would do such a thing to him, a lowly hunter who had just come out of the tutorial tower not long ago. There was that time he'd refused the offer from their secret little scout, Alice, but to think they'd act so harshly against him for just a mere rejection is unthinkable, right? Clever son of a... Well, yeah, of course it's unthinkable. What would it do to the reputation? I'd wager the same thing as the audio recording he started playing of Chungkang's final moments during their battle. The guy foolishly admitting he's an assassin sent by the Ares Guild. The recording goes on and on through their entire conversation, easily painting a picture of how brutal the Ares mindset is. Seems Kim royally flushed them here because I don't see a chance in heck that Ares could claw their way out of this one. But that guy seems to when he suggests that this may be a fake recording. So you know what the protagonist pulls out next to shock the entire room? Chungkang's phone. Laying out his trump card, Kim says that he couldn't confirm much of anything at that moment due to the device being locked by passcode, but he's positive a quick check by the companies that made it would say everything. But for the meantime, it was his turn to ask some good questions to stump these fools. What was he supposed to do in the face of such a big foe? Just sit back and take the punches? He was defending himself against a threat, and fought for his own survival while Chungkang failed to notice the gator sneaking up behind him. The mercenary tackled with the boss solo instead and viciously lost his life during the process. A wide-eared reporter puts 2 and 2 together, saying that Kim had just admitted to murdering Chungkang. While that is true, it was more set out of guilt over what happened, as Chun's carelessness is what killed him. The media laps this up with several keyboards clattering away in the background whilst Kim keeps them entertained, dancing around with his words to keep the hungry wolves fed. He'd often heard just how amazing a place Ares truly was, so he was more than willing to move past this incident quietly. That's a load of BS. But he wasn't aware of just how big a toilet storm he'd caused by doing such things. I mean, he had lived 12 years in the past where news media wasn't everywhere, so that part is at the very least believable. And while walking out of that soul-sucking conference later that day, Kim is rightfully smug. What he had given the reporters was a massive, glaring excuse to poke holes in the pride and joy of the Ares Guild persona, the one they had been building as a brand in the Korean landscape and across the world. All of it down the drain because of one lame trick, a simple recorded audio, that the clever hunter had the foresight to make. Yeah, Lady Karma came knocking and she brought a freaking sledgehammer. The Ares chief had only thought of him as a man who obtained strength and no brain with it. But boy, did that come back to bite him in the butt. But now this is apparently a more personal endeavor to make Kim pay for the crime of insulting them. And this is so pathetic, I can't read more of it. Once leaving for home with Shion later that night, Kim decided to go for a walk but oddly tells his comrade not to follow behind for any reason. Shion is a little perplexed but not too worried since his old friend is able to take care of himself just fine. And as per the walk down a lonely alleyway, Kim has to hand it to the people following him. To think they would take the split second he's alone to appear and cause a bit of trouble, they don't make it very far into combat. Striking at his body parts with all their blades at once, every single one stops on contact with his skin. The men are bewildered by their failure to make even a dent on Kim, and when they're done with those oversized back scratchers, he takes them out one by one and still has time to spare. Kim grabs the last walking guy by the collar of his robe, making the man beg for mercy and forgiveness from the protagonist. You just tried to kill him, idiot. You're lucky he needs something from you. If the moron wants to live, then he'll guide Kim to their secret little hideout where a certain someone is waiting for him. And outside said underground bunker, two guards are idly chatting away while they do their jobs. This place is being constructed at quite the fast pace, their guild working hard to get it up and running. The money used for it is all from quite corrupt sources. While the two yap on the topic of a celebrity coming in today is brought up, supposedly it's that advanced player the news has not been shutting up about. They would like to imagine him being dragged along, only for him to land right beside them and shake the entire structure like a bomb. Yes, this was the place, and that high-ranked team that was supposed to capture him, well, their only remaining member is begging for his bloody life, held by an iron grip. Be glad he didn't hear your conversation, I guess. Knowing how to make quite the flashy entrance, he kicks the elevator out of commission and jumps down the shaft instead, surprising a room full of armed and not-so-dangerous people. When prompted for who he is, Kim only replies with, "The Grim Reaper, who will send you to the afterlife." Oh neat, give Rogue and Johnny my regards. While he beats the snot out of those goons, in another part of the bunker, the Ares branch manager we've come to know and hate is busy torturing a member of the Pato Guild for information. Yet even when her guild has abandoned her, she refuses to say anything at all. This drives the branch manager up the wall. The guy literally sees red and orders that she be taken back to her cell. It's better for her to know what it's like to die if she's not going to be of any use. They should make sure to break her down properly, since it doesn't seem like she'll give them anything. But before they can get to her, the manager's 7 p.m. appointment arrives with some hefty knocks on the door, or what remains of it once the metal is kicked off its frame. The manager now has a choice to make. Does Kim get to beat him to death and bury him, or will they sit down for a nice lengthy conversation? Ah, there it is. The look of fear I've wanted on this man's face. Not so high and mighty in person, are you? One of the guards in the room doesn't seem to get the memo or have eyes, since he attacks Kim then and there despite the hallway of corpses trailing all the way back from the entrance. One easy thwack later and that person is rectified. At this point, the manager becomes certain that if he fights, he will die. Why? Because every single guard in this building were B+ rank, and most mercenaries were at least A+ rank, while the team sent to retrieve Kim were on the verge of becoming S ranks. Yet not a single one could take him on. He'd even wanted to believe the boss of that chasm was low ranked, but nope, Kim is easily a high S rank. You don't freaking say. Kim retakes the attention of the room with the usual sassy words, asking if this guy was as deaf as he seemed. I laugh, they all have hearing problems. The branch manager should make up his darn mind already. Was he going to get beaten and buried, or were they going to sit and talk? Oh, the confidence oozing off this guy is great. Even though the manager calls him a few dirty names and his knee-jerk is to the right, he has the sensibility and restraint to choose the diplomatic option. Information gathering should come first of all is his take on things, but our boy seems to have other plans, because the first thing brought up is compensation. That's right, for all the trouble the Ares Guild has caused, everything from the assassins to the social media scam they had tried to pull against him, monetary damage comp of $10 million US, alongside a few low-level dungeons they have. After an outburst of rage at how ludicrous that proposition sounds, Kim states it's more than fair. I think so too. But if it's money he wants, why did he reject the Ares Guild offer to join the ranks of their best? If he simply wants prestige, the offer to join Ares was still there, as this relationship of bad blood they have against each other serves no purpose. They could instead benefit from working together and get Kim whatever he wanted in return for his services. Instead, Kim rejects again and adds the girl behind him to the list of compensation, along with $500,000 for wasting his time. He doesn't give a flying fluff about Ares nor what they want. And from all this negotiating, he walks home to a very surprised Chiun, asking who the heck that girl on his back is. Before continuing, we have the obligatory jump to a rather edgy man making his way toward a huge tower amongst a world laying in ruins, remarking something about the 9th floor. If you recall from previous episode, that's us. But in the meantime, Kim now has to explain to Shion how he got $11 million in compensation, the rights to 4 low-level dungeons, and this hostage as compensation. Yeah, good luck with that, buddy. You're going to need it. He also has something on a personal note to ask the woman, so it's for the best that she wakes up soon. But of course, the story wouldn't give us that big convenience, would it? No, because this is decently written. When Shion is gone for the day, all the bosses are beginning to respawn, so his time to shine. Kim looks over the beaten woman who lays unconscious on the bed before him, covered in large part by a familiar skull tattoo, just like the skull he had once worn when in the tower. True emptiness comes from first abandoning yourself, is what he had said while carving that mask. Opening the information tab, he gains a little insight about Hong Lin, who quietly sleeps her way through the day. And then hell breaks loose in his mind as a new notification appears. Someone is climbing the 9th floor tunnel towards Earth. He's taken straight to AV with only a 5-second warning. She warns him in person that that person is on the way, the next climber. She brings up the notification panel in silence when asked who's coming and how much time they have, but gets clobbered over the head for her next attempted words. If she had just brought him here to recite what the useless notification did, there was a lot more than just one hit waiting for her. Instead, she had brought him here to give him a stark warning about this next climber. They're stronger than anything he's faced before, and before he could even consider any semblance of a fair fight, even when no such thing exists or ever will, there would be many a thing he'd need to prepare for. He would need to awaken his skills of magic before anything else. Though this person isn't a high-rank climber, as you need a lot more than magic for one of those, even middle rank would be an uphill battle without the use of such important skills. She manages to squeak out that she can't tell him much of anything else. And Kim accurately sums it up as, a middle rank climber is coming up, but I won't tell you all and I'll just watch as you struggle. Once AV has been thoroughly smashed, on the school you degenerates, she's insistent that he shouldn't keep taking his anger out on her as a fragile little lady just trying to do her job. Then do your job, AV, and give him information required to, save the Earth. Didn't his parents teach him not to hit weak women? Oh. Well, that's a sore spot if I ever seen one. Not realizing what she's done until after that fact, AV gets the reply that no, his parents didn't teach him anything. They've been dead since he was a boy. A bittersweet memory, they got killed in a car crash. She bows repeatedly to try and fix her grave mistake, but he dismisses it as nothing serious. The first time she's visibly gotten under his skin in this series, and it had to be about the parents. Why you gotta do that to the poor man? Knock off GLaDOS? Moving to the return part, Kim moans endlessly in the Aran Guild's headquarters from within a very large, very intricate magic circle. Soyun calls out for him to not touch the chalk at any blasted cost, as this is a 5... Wait? No, that... Okay. This is a magic circle with $5 billion, and the part frustrating Kim so much is that no matter what is done, there's not a single trace of magic in him. It is at this time Shion decides to stick his neck in and hand the distraught protagonist some mail. A package of documents regarding the creation of a guild. Both Yeon and Shion are surprised at the fact that their old friend had established something like this without warning. Now that he has the rights to some of the dungeons, Kim figured that he should actually start doing something with them. Even named the guild guardian after a secret job of protecting the Earth. Kim turns to Shion while he's there and asks if the woman he had brought back was awake yet, the short answer being no. He'll be busy in the meantime trying to figure out ways to gain any form of magical power. And Yeon recommends a hunter with a unique talent called Blood Degree from the Japanese Hunters branch. Apparently she can directly inject magic into hunters to upgrade their stats to the next level, but this also means Kim would have to fly all the way out to Japan in order to meet with her. Kim mentions that this is a little annoying and puts his hand down to lean on it, only to slip on the chalk and break the circle. I'll just let Yeon's face do the talking here. $5 billion, right? The lighting surrounding the building now says yes, rest in peace. And the same can be said for some of the people in Japan as this is going on, for at the very moment, something appears in front of the Japanese labyrinth. That looks a lot like a teleporter to me. Uh-oh. Faced with an impossibly strong adversary, Guildmaster Nakagawa, the person Kim and company are going to be looking for, is running around helping people up with her abilities. That is, until the most terrifying opponent makes mincemeat of her comrades in arms. Now faced with the corpses of those who had begged and screamed for help only moments before, she has but a second to consider options before coming face to face with him and getting diced into thundery death. And just when she does, Kim gets a notification that the climber has henceforth reached the 9th floor. He gets a ride for the airport immediately. Meanwhile, at the Japanese Hunters branch, 4 people including the supposedly dead Nakagawa sit at a table and are forced to watch the chaos unfold as Chunma, the climber's name, cuts through everything in his path and more. The saddened guildmaster was able to be revived through an artifact, but her guildmates and the endless slaughtered civilians weren't so lucky. But even more of a treat to her eyes is a ray of hope as the advanced player enters view, standing before Chunma without fear despite the man's bizarre appearance and resemblance to feudal Japanese fashion. Being unable to check his status, Kim basically confirms this is the climber he's supposed to fight and gets straight to the point asking what he is. This prompts Chunma to attack immediately, swinging the giant blade and sending a blast out. It decimates some nearby rocks but not the protagonist. Wait, where'd he go? Oh, that's where. Chunma is quick to realize he's about to get decked back to where he came from and is quick enough to block, forcing Kim back and into a range where he can use that strike again. He's certainly fast, but not fast enough that our hero has no chance to dodge the attacks. That's right, attacks. Because this is not just a single cut at him, it's a whole lot of them all at once, done with such a speed that they all blend together. Should one of those hit him proper, he'd be dead on the spot. So instead, Kim will use the range of that attack to his advantage by getting in close where Chunma doesn't have a chance to use it. Slamming his fist yet again into the block of a sword, the climber is roughly surprised by the literal gut-wrenching agony of a full-fisted punch from the now interested protagonist. Realizing that he can't give the guy any distance, Kim rushes back in, but it's too late. The lightning aura of Chunma has been released and it angrily flares, much worse than Yun's earlier rage. Watching from the boardroom, Shiyun is tricked, confounded, and downright bamboozled at what he's seeing from the battlefield. Not only did a crevasse open at 2 p.m., Kim somehow knew about it. He knew and rushed over to Japan whilst Nakagawa and company were awaiting reinforcements, bolting away from the airport and straight for the scene of action from the moment they landed. Wondering what kind of BS skill this was, Chunma outright says this ain't nothing like what they have in this world. With a long distance strike while Kim is running around like a monkey, he attempts to slice the protagonist in half, and gets a massive headache for his trouble. Making his enemy lean over from the pain now circulating through his head, Kim takes the chance to use that one skill which obliterated the previous climber, the one he'd yelled out and been embarrassed of. One clean hit to the temple later, and he's checking if it had any effects, but no, his ultimate did nothing but knockback damage. Oof. Time for retaliation. A very painful one. Kim tries in vain to close the distance before it's too late, scrambling forward in any sense of the word to get close enough while the guy monologues his evilness for all to hear, and also calls out the attack move like an 8th grader. Shiyun and the meeting room watch in terror as everything in the sword's path is just gone. Every single building, every piece of rubble, everything. It's all gone. All except for Kim, who had avoided the majority of the attack by the skin of his teeth, but the graze he got from it was still exceedingly painful. Electricity flows through his veins with the blood and causes more than just cool monochrome effects. It makes a notification pop up. He has unlocked his mana at long fluffing last, and finally, it's getting upgraded. The magic lightning is being forced through his body and jumpstarting whatever the heck magic is made from. If this is the same Chunma who had appeared in countless books on martial arts he had read as a subject, then he's the undisputed king of the castle in his field of study. Kang Jin-ho would like a word with you. But even after seeing the Raiden's blade that Chunma had used to almost kill him, Kim still had ideas of beating him the heck up and taking a victory. Well, yeah, he's got an attitude of magnitude and the pride to go with it. What else did you expect, plasma for brains? Oh, and the magic lightning had pierced Kim's mana veins. All he had previously done in the tower was follow Chunma's movements blindly, not knowing what mana pathways to use for what moves, or even how. But now he gets the awesome benefit of glowy pink wings and a black hole behind him. Somebody in the comments, please explain how the heck this is martial arts. Isn't it about using technique and skill to outwit an opponent stronger than you rather than relying on fancy tricks? Oh well. Since he's gotten a new trick from this dude, he may as well show it off straight away, and end the battle right here and now. Gathering all his magic in one place, Kim ends this with a single strike. He ends this all with a single hit. Getting the kill instantly, we now jump back to the Pado Guild's headquarters and see his student, the leader of her guild, reviewing the video over and over again. Without a shadow of doubt in her mind, this was her master from the tutorial tower. A brief overlook of her history shows her abandonment within the tower, zombies of some kind coming to Nom Nom, the pathetic little human, until they weren't. Because looking up at the person who had saved her, Kim stands there with his signature mask, beating the zombies to fleshy demonic pulps and throwing them around like freaking ragdolls. She asks her subordinates what areas are left in the region for their guild to take, and gets the answer that there's only one left in all of China that they don't own. They would take care of it in a single month for their mistress. But this time, the queen will actually move with her soldiers, because she had sworn while in the tower that on the day her master found a way out of the dreaded nightmare, she would have a well-prepared place suited to his liking. Though she has to hurry, she has to make sure everything is in place so she can go to Korean soil and visit him in person. But before that, Kim walks out of the airport doors and into the hailstorm of camera flashes. Oh fluffing heck, not this again. Ever heard of personal privacy, you... Right, family friendly. What doesn't help his mood nor mine is that they throw endless sets of questions at him and all expect answers. But because he doesn't have anything resembling an answer for any of them, he throws poor Xion under the bus and makes himself scarce. When getting home, he notices that the woman he'd saved, Hung Lin, is up and at him at last, and I gotta admit, for that dress, her figure is pretty amazing. Anime bod right there. Sitting her down, he'd quickly learn how formal Hung Lin is, and why. As an executive of the most infamous guild in all of China, she'd have to keep her manners about her at all times. But he doesn't give a flying about all that stuff. He only wants to know one thing. Where did the tattoo on her shoulder come from? That's an easy answer at least. It came from the guildmaster herself, along with the words that woman had said when personally engraving it in Lin's shoulder. Nothing in the world can be above you. There's only one person above you. The sky. Everything else must stay below you. Therefore, you must... His slammed fist on the ground shuts her up immediately. While she didn't make a mistake in her speech, he had a long time ago. When he had 8th grade syndrome. After a few flashbacks of the kinds of things he used to do in the dungeon for training purposes, Kim comes back to reality and basically tells Lin out of sheer embarrassment that whenever she goes back to China, she's to tell her guild leader to never ever come looking for him. Because that guildmaster had to be his old student from the dungeon. The only person in the world who would know the kind of cringeworthy things he had said. But after this, there's one more surprise for this script. For a few days after sending Lin off on her merry way back to the motherland, who else appears on Knowing the Hunter but our hero himself? Yun spits her drink out and Xion just melts into his sitting position, leaving Kim on screen to say that because he'd recently created a guild, he'd soon be opening recruitment, and if anyone wanted to join, now would be the time. But of course this backfires in the most amusing way possible, because the very next day, both Kim and Xion are standing in front of a full warehouse. Can you guess what it's filled with? Guild applications. Getting his friends to help out with sorting out the endless paperwork in his warehouse of horrors, Kim had promised that they could use his beginner dungeons as payment for their immaculate aid. He's like the only dude who would call guild masters for this. And amongst all the chaos of sorting out papers, Kim also has to deal with all the guild applicants in person to determine who would join him. Many are faced with extreme rejection, as you'd expect from the hothead, but making use of his new skill to check their personalities comes in real handy. He had gotten the extra out of AV when going to see her after defeating the climber last episode, and after she'd congratulated him, the ability popped up in his little menu when using the Info Authority skill. The notification performance had been improved as well. It had better be unless you want more dents in the skull, sweetie. But little did Kim know just how useful it'd be. Now looking over the 3 newbies in his makeshift office, Kim finally finds the personalities he'd been looking for this entire time. These hunters are overjoyed at being accepted into the guild of the infamous advanced player, given how strict the perceived requirements are. Nah, he's just stupidly lazy. Talking to Xion later, Kim lets out that he'd intentionally been picking out people who wouldn't steal from him by ways of personality. Okay, that's honestly kinda smart. They don't have to be very skilled since he'd be the one doing all the beating up, though it's noted that there were no S-rank volunteers. They are apparently quite a rare sight all around the world, a total of 5,000 in existence. Soyun is 161st, he's 163rd, and Sokwan Hyung, the older gentleman of a guildmaster, is 175th. Talk about friends in high places, yeesh. Anyone inside the top 200 is recognized, but most die trying to get their hands on ST plus grade artifacts in pursuit of more power. There's apparently a fine line when it comes to ability grades, and you can only progress a maximum of 3 higher than your start. If you begin at C, your highest will be A-. In order to curb this gap, many people go for ST plus artifacts from the depths of the labyrinth, but killing other hunters for them is also an option. Being dropped off at the visible swamp dungeon with the smirk widening, Kim tells his friends to go on ahead. He's gonna destroy the boss and join shortly. I believe the plot has other plans, mate, because waiting for him just beyond the gate of the visible swamp is a strange group who call themselves Pandemonium, hunter killers. Meet Le Chancla. These guys are professionals who have all previously made it to the top 100 of the S-rank charts, and so long as generous rewards are given on mission completion, they've never once failed an assassination. Until today, that is, because my man got places to be and you're so unkindly in the way. But among all these murderers is a huntress that catches his eye. Is it Ruby Rose? Rest in peace, Monty. No, but it is someone he can make good use of. Anya the Circler. A little back and forth later, he's trapped in a spell and still keeps the attitude at the ready. When she says he should understand the position he's in, big mistake, he already does. I quote, "I'm asking so I can figure out if I should kill all of you or not, but you have no patience." This sends shivers down her spine understandably, and the team engages Kim in one heck of a lopsided fight. In his favor, of course. Wonder if his poor slipper survived the onslaught. Speaking of onslaught, somewhere in the bowels of Xi'an, China, The strewn about remains of battle are evident within the underground bunker the Pato Guild have just raided. Kim's student has come out on top of everything thrown at her and has the audacity to laugh in the face of the opposition when he mentions stronger forces on the way. That's quite cute, but also extremely unnerving. To end the guy's suffering, she takes a rather familiar stance and pulls the same kind of stuff that Kim had in the crevice. The Overlord's punch decimates what's left of his forces and him, leaving her alone in the scene of carnage and strife. A quick memory of her master's words to not come looking for him makes her envious of Hongrin, but it's outweighed by her own desire to see him. Definitely yandere. Crazy even if she is hot. Can we get a name for her, please? Walking out of the burning building, the little lady takes his words as "Don't look for me until you have fulfilled your vows." That's gonna be a nasty shock. And now, dragging a certain someone with him, Kim surprises the heck out of Soyeon once more with the person he brought to fix her $5 billion magic circle. The one that he'd broken last episode. Sorry, saying that still causes gears to turn. Anyhow, with the small girl getting to work immediately to save her own butt, Yeon is further surprised that he slipper-slapped the life out of Pandemonium. The Pandemonium. I can almost see how soft her voice is while processing this. Then, as a seemingly innocent gift to his old friend, Kim hands her the staff and robe used by Anya earlier, both S+ artifacts, and then proceeds to leave to go and, repay the Ares Guild for the little present. Better start praying, manager. Slamming the attackers left and right with his toy hammer, I wish I were joking, Kim sends the entirety of the first floor security packing, including some guys who must be prepared to meet their maker. Blocking his way and not helping out their buddies in trouble, that's not very comrade of you boys. Getting a read on the situation from up in his pristine office, the manager listens as his subordinates get pounded to oblivion by a child's plaything. If news got out that they were getting beaten up with such a thing, Ares would lose its face entirely, become a laughingstock. But I think you have bigger problems right now, buddy. Like that, maybe. The manager is bonked back into his nearby bookshelf by a very irate protagonist who's getting rather amused at this little game of cat and mouse. How long had it been since they had talked about compensation for the damages that Ares had caused him? And look what he's gone and done again. Some people just never seem to learn. This time, he wants about 20 billion won. Still practically nothing in terms of the money Ares has. The manager is more concerned with the fact that Pandemonium was beaten. Kim then scares the life out of him by resting the hammer on his head, saying clearly that every time Ares sends a man after him, he'll come to claim compensation. Better call the hospital now if he doesn't want his subordinates to die on his doorstep. For now, the manager would just have to accept his defeat, even though he now wants Kim dead as a personal vendetta. So petty, bro. Chill out. There is only one person left he could think of to face this nightmare of a man that keeps humiliating Ares. The fifth within the world of the S-ranked, the Emperor Dragon. But before that, something else had to happen. For down on the 8th floor of the Celestial Tower, a new climber is making their way up. The final Guardian had lost a bet against her, and as promised, she'd take the final city as sacrifice. With only 5 steps on its floor, everything is destroyed. That's strong. For it to have ended there, this technique may be shortened to the 5-step extermination instead of 10. She and her companions then move to leave, hoping to head up and have even more fun up on the next floor. And climbing back up that tower into the world above, Kim is reading the news about Ares having 47 ambulances called to their head office. The internet eats it up like pancakes with sprinkles and syrup. One guy even working at the store Kim had bought the toy from. And then he notices that it's time for his lectures? You wouldn't think that he'd be willing to do something like that. Later that day, during the middle of said lecture, the climber notification finally pops up with a timer ticking down to arrival. Kim is then invited by AV and would be teleported in 1 hour. He drops the corpse and has the students tag along while he shows how to beat a boss with his bare hands, the woman translating into Chinese for the foreign students. When he's summoned to AV's office, Kim immediately asks why another climber is coming up so soon. It hasn't been long since Chunma and AV is already ordering him around a whole bunch. She says a little of the information Authority did accumulate, so she'd given him more to work with this time around. The one coming up this time has many comrades with her, but it's not like the Crimson Demon he had first fought. Those were just mobs spawned with the crevice to give the demon a boost in conquering the world. This one is a mid-tier and she seems to be one of the above average ones, so he'd have a decent fight on his hands. But the first battle Kim has to fight is that of Soyeon as he kicks in her door again, coming to see how the circle is going. Anya was doing her job well, but now he needs her to perform another task, using her unique skill of teleportation to get him somewhere very fast. And where would he be going, you may ask? Why, Germany, of course, courtesy of the notification. Going all the way there with a little editing, we see the climber standing stoutly in front of the army and a hunter glowing green. There's even a big scary tank there. Not like it'll make much difference. She's to surrender and they'd spare her life, but the woman seems so casual it's almost creepy. That's quite a lot of confidence for quite the puny human. But while they do think that they have numbers over her, the woman's companions would also be joining her, and they're a lot scarier than some soldiers. We now have a name for her as well, the mysterious God of Chaos. When she finishes her sentence, the creature companions rise and fall on the city, destroying everything in their path while Kim looks through flight menus across the ocean. The average flight time from Seoul to Germany is about 11 hours, and even then there's no guarantee that any airports would be left. Anya is working hard at the helm of her magic circle in preparation to send Kim instantly, though it would still need to take about 5 hours. But while waiting for her to finish, the God of Chaos decides to make a bet with the entire world. She'll stay in the city she's raiding for 24 hours, and if someone can take her down within that time, she'll leave quietly. But should they fail to stop her within that time, she will move on to the next city. The head of the German Hunters Association is stressed to hell and gone as he's told the damages, including 20,000 civilian casualties even with the ordered evacuation. The 100 hunters they had sent to deal with this threat, 32 of which were S rank, are all non-responsive and assumed dead. They've tried asking for help from the top 5 S ranks in the world, as this is a more intense situation than the Japanese crevice earlier that month, but none of them responded. But the phone call he takes gives a single ray of hope in this desolate time, for the backup they are getting instead is the one and only advanced player. A bright flash of pink and deep indigo magic pour from the sky onto a nearby building, dropping Kim to his destination like a send from God themselves. Might as well be to the people here. Seeing a giant few monsters nearby, the first few unfortunates who approach him begin to annoy the player despite their presence over him. Kim leaps for the nearest one, a giant beetle-like monster, and kicks it so hard across the face that the creature goes tumbling. He then jumps over to the nearest centipede and runs straight up its body, smacking it to fluff up and asking if they're the ones who summoned him. Indeed they were, and the giant thing is now intimidated on where that brat he saw on the TV is at. And from all across Germany, people are beginning to filter into a stream to see the utter chaos in the affected city right now. And who else steps into view of the camera and the entire world than the advanced player, taking up mantle of this challenge. Finally standing face to face with the little twerp who dares to intrude upon his green earth, the man himself looks over her childish form with some kind of amusement that his enemy is a kid. So he's the first contender? Yeah, and he's got witty puns to spare. Kim asks if her mouth was the only thing that aged, making the chibi God of Chaos a bit angry at the sheer audacity coming from such a human. He basically dismisses her, asking how she's going to take responsibility for the city she's just ruined, as if he's already won the battle. After gloating about how many steps the last few people have lasted in the face of her ability, she begins the countdown. 1 step, 2 steps. Kim starts to feel the buzzing of the air around him as vibrations pick up, energy condensing and splitting at the seams like it's a cosmic toy. Suddenly, Kim is without breath. It's taken from his lungs by all the mana hung around his body like the world's heaviest weight. Her magic is spreading and encompassing the whole area, beginning to crush everything in its wake. 3 steps, 4 steps, 5 steps. Kim does his best not to get taken out of commission, just barely holding on to dear life while preparing an attack against this annoyance of an inhumane monetization. 6 steps, 7 steps. Kim cannot control his magic anymore and it begins to spiral out of control, encompassing the area and getting crushed underfoot quite literally. His magic is getting expanded by the sheer force she's putting out. His whole body is now quaking in itself and the pressure this mid-tier climber is exerting. But even with all the world and environment as his disadvantage, Kim pushes through the pain and sorrow to a bright sunny day. He guns for the God of Chaos with his current ultimate move from his set. 8 steps, 9 steps. Kim swings a leg over her head trying to knock the runt out cold, and she catches it. Kim was unable to stop her. 10 steps, extermination. The mana in his body is practically bursting at the skin, about to rip his body a new one from the inside out. Yet he endures the harshness and comes out on top of the god's divine abilities through sheer willpower. She's very impressed by his durability to withstand her ultimate technique all the way, taking every bit of damage to the point it only influenced a small area. In the previous floor, that same technique flattened the entire city in just 5 steps. So what you're telling me is that he took the equivalent of a nuclear bomb, crushing down on his soul all at once, and lived? What? I don't, need a second. Okay. Though while he did withstand the damage, it wasn't without some form of cost to himself. Kim is at his limit already. Or so she seemed to think. He stands up tall one more time, his tracksuit now ruined almost beyond repair. Maybe that suit is his plot armor. And reminds her that among the choices of him begging for life or waiting for death, there's a third. Kicking the pants off her and sending the wretch back home from where she came. The deity is very amused by his words and releases all her magic power as a courtesy for the amusement he's provided thus far, keeping her composure and going all out with the 10 steps against her new rival. But this magic is way denser and way heavier than the stuff he just had to deal with. But a notification alerts that he stopped the mana expansion from happening internally, increasing his durability. He's still growing rapidly despite the pressure. When he finally realized this fight was the same as Chunma, Kim had practically won. Clearing his head to think of something that could defeat this tiny vixen, he takes inspiration from everything he'd learned in the tutorial tower. Be it from anime, manga, any kind of fictional characters, to normal people, they were just that. But when you have the same kind of powers as people such as them, they become masters to learn from. Tens of thousands of masters. Managing to control the flow of his magic once more from the forced injection, Kim calms himself and creates a technique out of thin air, grabbing the god's leg with it to stop her walking. Again and again she tries, getting thwarted each time. But she finally tricks him into the defense, landing the fourth step of her skill and crushing him with pressure once more, concentrating all her magic on his body alone to crush this worm of a human being. But as she lands her fifth step, Kim is directly in her face, at least 2 heads taller than the tiny being, and halting her with his own form of pressure. She looks up at him shocked, in unbridled awe that someone could withstand this much from her hands and still remain above in terms of power. Yeah, get used to it, little lady, if you live long enough to see the next fight. Her stacks did nothing to him this time, and now it's his turn to use the powers of protagonist to bonk her back into the dusty wasteland she came from. Using his own special technique, this is all ended in a single massive blow. It only takes a few seconds for this to be over, a beam of pure light piercing her chest and destroying whatever was left of her soul, along with any dream she may have had of getting to the top of the celestial tower. The notifications indicate that he'd successfully captured her. Captured? Okay, probably translation errors or something. And the instant it's all over, he's brought up to Avi's office. Through all his efforts, he had earned a fat promotion and could now access more detailed information. Why did Avi summon him immediately after the event? Well, she was just happy and wanted to pass the information along. Duh, sometimes the child melts my heart. After the adorable moment has passed, Kim notices the room they stand in is also a lot freaking bigger than before. Avi explains that this is due to him getting upgrades. It directly proportions to his progress, and there are many other things that have changed since he became a mid-low tier authority. Another is that he now has the power to decorate the system room however the heck he sees fit. Trying it out for the first time, Kim brings up the very vivid memory he has of the first floor from that tutorial tower. I bet that must be bittersweet, remembering the old place again. Just as Avi had said, soon as he presses the button, poof, she recognizes it instantly and stares in curiosity at the space now transformed before he does it again, this time to Shion's apartment for the sake of comfortability. Now Avi is practically ecstatic with joy because it's the first time she's ever seen the room of a human from the 9th floor. She can't use the button herself and has been in that same room from the date of her creation. She'd even sleep on her desk, alone, when tired. Jesus, isn't that a bit harsh? Now they get back to the meat and potatoes. Kim can not only walk in whenever he wants, answers are now available from AV, such as the reason his real stats don't match those shown on the menu system. When the tower was created, it had a lock put on it, stopping people from rising too high in power. But despite the system lock, his strength has continued to rise, creating a disparity between what was shown and what it currently is. Now there's a lot to cover here since this is a season finale and we don't have enough time in the episode, so I'll briefly touch on it all. Crazy Student has gone through yet another guild in her crazed rampage on readying a throne for her master, all from a promise she had made to him in the tower, not the other way as she implied. Kim had essentially gotten an all-expenses-paid invitation to move to Germany in return for saving their city from the cataclysmic destruction, and we learned that his cover for going crevice stomping is kicking the snot out of those who think they're hot stuff or the world's strongest. And finally, after 10 long parts, we have come to the end of the first season of the advanced player of the tutorial tower. Yes, I hear you in the comments, that is the full name. Enjoy! Now it's time to move into season 2, where a new artist is drawing the panels. Let's jump into it. Almost 2 weeks after defeating the God of Chaos, Kim Hyunwoo has gone on the now famous Knowing the Hunter show to say some things about his previous conference with the press, in which he'd made some rather odd statements. They replay the scene in question behind him on the big screen for all cameras to see. When prompted for what the heck kind of skills were used to solve the previous 2 chasms, he said that those weren't skills, they were moves he himself had created. Though the advanced player isn't all too happy being used as a marketing point for the martial arts world to gain more cash, and he shows as such. Taking the sword from one of these so-called masters that the show had brought on stage to perform their martial arts, Kim bluntly asks if people who know jack about martial arts would get strong just by learning them. I think the Manhwa logic answer to this would be yes. You're our example, mate. But apparently martial arts isn't the reason he's such an overwhelmingly strong hunter in the end. He proves as much by using the same technique the previous martial artist had used, blowing a hole straight through the ceiling of the studio to get the point across that he is the strong one and they are not. A wee bit egotistical, but I guess he's earned the right to be after saving the earth about 3 times already. Coming back into the office on his phone as always, Kim walks past a cute woman at her desk who turns out to be none other than Anya the Circler. She's completely changed her appearance and demeanor, becoming a skittish working woman in the face of her big scary boss man. He had chose to let her live with him for the sake of convenience, since she's a fairly hard worker at the core, but wouldn't tolerate her running away. Though it's meant as a joke, she clearly doesn't take it as one. But Anya has to admit this is a much nicer life than being on the run across the world 24/7. Then a fax arrives with the proper transfer procedures of dungeons from the Ares Guild. Uh-oh, what did that stupid manager do this time around? Apparently, arrive in China seeking help from the last people you would expect from this world, their mortal enemy, the Pado Guild that rules the entire continent, the ones who have been causing them enough trouble to be cautious. But despite the dire necessity, this was the manager's last attempt to get back at Hyunwoo, because once the main branch catches on that their dungeon monopoly had been taken away, which they already have, the manager and his team would be considered useless. And that is really bad news when it comes to the power-hungry Ares Guild. So the manager comes face to face with his worst nightmare, being granted entrance to see the Dragon Emperor he sought after. Being taken in through the main entrance, the first thing catching the manager's attention is the woman on the throne in the far end of this room. Wait a second, Kim Student is the 5th strongest in the world? What that kind of monster did he create? The manager steps up to Her Highness and is asked for the name of the person he wants dead. But before he can mutter a thing, there's the overwhelming feeling that he shouldn't say what he's about to. But if he goes back empty-handed, he's as good as dead. Oh ho ho, buddy. Funny that you think you're gonna be leaving in anything except a nice comfy body bag. If she even grants that courtesy for insulting her beloved master. She slowly gets up from her seat, magic flooding the room like a tsunami, and forcing the manager back in terror of the horrible, infinitely bad idea he just suggested. Telling a yandere that you want the person they love dead, and you want them to do it? Nope. With only a single hit, the man is put back on his knees in front of the woman. He then tries to convince her over the next few minutes of trembling that Kim may not be the master she's been looking for all this time, and for all the effort in the world he'd put in to save his puny life, she just hits him again. How dare this arrogant little worm deny her and her master? This man was going to long for a peaceful death. Up in AV's room, Kim and the girl are hanging out and he asks how the TV has been for her. She'd never seen such devices before as she wasn't permitted to leave her room. Quite the pity that she can't see the world she's been created to protect. She can't make things in this room either, so she's limited to whatever Kim makes for her. She gives him a huge hug for making the PlayStation for her, then a bit of quite useful information for the imagination. Good luck saying that 5 times without a hitch. While Kim is nom-nomming his chicken on the above ground with his friends, he thinks back on AV's words. There were originally 3 crevices opened up top, but only 1 has been closed, meaning 2 climbers are still present in the modern world, and the audience may have an idea of who one of them is. But I won't spoil you like that. Old man Seokwon asks when Kim is going to Germany, and it's in more or less 3 days. They seem surprised when he's planning to come back straight away, yet excited when proposing that the 4 of them go as a group. Kim asks if they could really be touring around in a country that was just decimated by such a rift. Soyeon the hottie, who looks great in this new style, props to the artist, claims that this much damage could just be repaired by a couple game class hunters who can use magic circles. That's how there isn't a city that's been cratered by the beasties yet. But in summary, they want to head out to Germany to take part in an auction held by the International Hunters Guild, which showcases rare and hard to get objects. Though Kim needs this for another reason. He's looking for ways to get stronger. After he almost got wiped to the floor by Chunma and that Chaos God, he'd need it. Meanwhile, somewhere in China, the remaining man from Ares who had come with his now deceased manager, bet he's sleeping comfortably in the morgue, burns a few papers to do with dungeon transference. The manager had left around 1 PM after getting a call from the Pado Guild's main office, and hadn't returned yet, meaning only one thing. Yeah, that he was a fluffy moron all along. I mean, who sees a guy solo 2 dungeon bosses, a crevice, the literal strongest man on the Korean side of their guild, the best known hunter-killer group in the world, and still thinks their team is stronger? One who has a death wish, that's who. But as this remainder reaches for the door handle, an assassin decides to give him a hand. The strongest murderer hunters under the main office had paid a visit to end those who would betray the guild. Oof. Another of them checks that their target is dead already. Yeah, don't you have eyes? Body hit the floor over there. And the manager is undoubtedly dead from the mana that exploded out the Pado Castle. Though, what about the remaining target, the one who had received the dungeons? Numbers 4, 7, 9, and 10 are taking care of that. 4 people who will get their butts kicked back to America by the guy who ended 3 catastrophes, one after the next. Meanwhile, in the hall that Kim and friends are in, the auction is about to start. Seokwon asks if he's gonna remove that jersey. No, my dude, that's his iconic clothing. And it keeps the man comfy. He's earned it, wouldn't you say? Oh, and there's no S+ artifacts here at the auction. Not beside the one in his darn pocket. This little gem that the Chaos God dropped couldn't go on auction because it wasn't of any use, it seems. Not to mention that his menu is starting to get filled with these stupid lack of authority mentions again. For now, he should look at the other items on auction here, like the one that's going for $1 billion. Again, full of no authorities. He gets rather sick of seeing everything up on the stage and goes outside to get some fresh air, hearing the callouts from outside and walking past a few guards to get knocked out by the assassins. One dashes for him while another forces the man to dodge into the incoming blades, which are stopped dead by his fists. And then some kind of ability which I don't really know how to explain or understand without an explanation blasts him back into a skid. The numbers finally show their faces. 10 being quite the cute girl, even if psychotic in the eyes. She tries to start one of the monologues, which he ends by chucking a pebble at her, an instant knockdown right before he smiles and charges them. We also get a glimpse of the Aries owner, who knows this won't be enough to kill a hunter of his stature. This is more of a test, and besides, there's something he wants to see for himself. The big scary purple master asks his subordinate what happened. Evidently, 2 climbers have been taken down. Receiving their names, he claps and commends the current guardian on his feats of battle. The next climber has not been decided yet, though the master is excited for what will come of this development. In the meantime, Kim has gotten quite a few spoils of war from the parking lot battle. They had cast magic to hide their identities even in the CCTV cameras, and literally bitten their tongues off when he tried in vain to interrogate them. Jesus, guess they feared the big boss more than him. But seeing what would have happened to Mr. Manager, I think that's fair. He'd also beaten their faces to the point they couldn't be identified, which is just par for the darn course. One-sided massacre, right? But either way, it would have been nigh impossible, if not damn difficult, to find out who these people were. By the kind of skills, magic, and traits they had, they would have been scrubbed from the public eye, and not much more would have been found either way. Shion decides to head out and get some souvenirs before returning to Korea. Oh ho ho ho, hold up. Does Shion have his eyes on someone? Why yes he does. Wonder if it's Soyeon. In the meantime, Kim begins to examine the artifacts he had requisitioned from the Aries assassins. Due to his authority, hidden information has been revealed. Faker F173. All of them are like this, and the word means liar or conman. Does that mean this artifact was artificially created? Copied? But for the moment, none of that is important. Only the person who sent them is. If Kim finds them, he'll get more information along the way. Hook Sun-woo, that little crybaby of a manager, has he still not learned his lessons? Oh, believe me, he has. Kim goes looking for his target in their main office at home, holding a big rock with some kind of paper attached to it. Yet nobody seems to know where he's gone. Been out for 4 days without letting anyone know where he's gone. Though a memory flashes suddenly across the mind of the interrogated person, and he tells that the manager was off to meet the Imperial Pado Guild. Asking Shion about the guild when he's home, he gets the answer he seeks. The guild had practically monopolized the entirety of China's dungeons, which surprises Mr. Hyunwoo, who had heard last it was 50% of the dungeons among the entire country. Originally in China, there were quite a few laws about taking dungeons, as they had all belonged to the country. Yet the rules changed 3 to 4 years ago, which left everything as survival of the fittest. Directly after the laws were changed, the Imperial Guild had appeared and expanded their forces in magnitude. After flashbacks through his circle of memories of the little girl he'd personally trained, Kim decides what we've all been waiting for. Time for a teacher's conference with Miss Dragon. Within the Imperial Guild, its mistress and leader is trying to get some rest in that lavish bedroom she'd spent so long putting together. Thinking back to her master and how he'd saved her, the poor woman was nothing but a doll of a child commanded by her father, spending money where her father had ordered and being his little puppet. Her master had broken her out of the eggshells and created a little monster in the making. The big scary skull mask he wore was forever etched into her memory. There are no forces left in China who could stand against the Imperial Guild, and it wouldn't be long before he could go out and see her beloved instructor. That face is one of bliss. Meanwhile, in a hotel in Beijing, China, the 100 Knights of the Aries have received new orders to head out and kill the guy whom the other 4 have failed. They should always prioritize new orders, but as they still have to confirm the death of Mr. Sun-woo, they would remain in China for a while out of fear that Kim would have them meet the same fate as the others. Smart move. But even if those orders had come from the tippity top, why did they want this guy dead so badly? The better question is, are you paid to ask questions or do your job? Never seemed to have a problem killing before, though I'm afraid that your new guest who throws them one across the room has the motto of F 'em up, ask questions later. By that mask, he's clearly one of the Imperial Guild's members, and the two don't last long enough to get much good action from the one-sided fight. Skipping over to the next day where Anja the Circler is creating another teleportation circle, Kim really doesn't want to go to Beijing for fear of who he may meet there. But there's not much of a choice if he wants to have that manager pay the price for messing up his day again. Oh come now, not like you weren't enjoying the constant cat and mouse. For Kim, whose parents had passed in his teenage years, the priority was self-survival, thus the 8th grader syndrome hadn't hit him yet. But when it did hit in the tower, it just so happened to do so in front of the one person who'd take it to a personal level. The one who is now spreading it all over the darn news as the motto of the infamous guild that rules it. He'd just take care of that manager. No you won't, and return home without much fuss. Simple, yes? Nope. Because during the emergency crevice, they overlooked it. But teleporting into another country with zero warning could be considered illegal immigration. Who's gonna stand up to him? The government? Do you really think a politician is ballsy enough? He can find them. After he's left, poor Anja has a break, and Soyeon asks her a few questions. Kim arrives and stares up in horror at the guild before him as a guard notices he'd come out of bloody nowhere. Being caught by the guards, Kim starts to battle them and overwhelm everyone he comes up against, showing how to properly use the many techniques they seem to have ripped off from him via way of their master's teachings. And then, the lady herself arrives. Meeting his disciple for the very first time outside of the tutorial tower, the woman leaps step over step to be at his side. She had done it all for him. Made a guild of only the strongest, changed the people of her country, the very laws that governed them. Everything she's earned along the way held no meaning in the face of her devotion to the man before her. She kneels before him, naming the accurate time they had been apart, from the days to the split second she saw him. If that don't prove how yandere she is, I don't know what will. But following her lead, every remaining member of the guild bows in front of him. Ranking number 5 in the world, she couldn't be any happier than right then. After a touching moment for Miss Miryong as we learn her name, and it makes things much simpler, she takes him inside like a child on sugar and shows her master everything she had prepared for his arrival. Starting of course with the giant golden throne. If the chair is not to his liking, she would have its crafters executed for heresy. Whoa there. That's a whole new breed of crazy. But looking over at how excited she is, he can hardly say no to the girl who had devoted her life to making his easier. Oh boy. Wonder if you'll get a wild ride if you catch my— Ow! Sheesh, alright. Asking himself how things had ended up like this, Kim checks her stats. Of course, she's legal and very happy, but also way more of a monster than anyone could have suspected. If this woman was 5th in the world, what would 1st be like? Dragging Mr. Manager out of the dungeons below ground, she brings him up to the surface to face off against the man he had tried to have executed several times over. He asks why the manager is in such a state, and she rather bluntly tells that she dealt with him for the impudence shown when Sunwoo had said to assassinate him. One good scare by Young later, and he's given all Aries secrets away. Meanwhile, deep in a dungeon somewhere just outside of New York, Guildmaster Martin provides his subordinates, Knights 1 through 3, with some ST plus grade artifacts which would hopefully boost their strength enough to deal with Kim and any problems he may throw at them. Yeah, sure, you need that kind of prep work. Meanwhile, in the Goguryeo Guild HQ in Korea, Shion, Soyeon, and Sokwon are preparing paperwork and the like while chatting away, and the topic finally comes up of their skills getting stagnant in modern times. Though the 3 of them are indeed powerful, they are beginning to fall behind and feel quite a bit smaller in comparison to everyone else thanks to Kim and his antics. Who wouldn't? Skipping back to the Imperial Guild, Kim has decided that the punishment for Mr. Manager for all the trouble would be 30 days down in the dungeons of man-eating rats. Wait, what? Since his durability was over C+, he'd be immune to the damage, but still feel the, okay, this woman has lost her mind. But that isn't the worst of it, for when Kim heads out back to Korea to deal with the Aries Guild and puts her as second priority, Young pretty much snaps at the core and orders with cold and concise words, if there are any Aries Guild members in our area, kill them all. Taking the smart route and using his big brain time wisely, Kim brings one of those artifacts to the one person on Earth who could tell him more, AV, who has been retranslated to Eve. With just one look, she can tell that this ain't no artifact she's ever seen, detailing a little of the process they actually use to select artifacts, and saying that the floors they come from are always completed before the climbers can climb. She says this is nothing but a well-made copy, and treating her like a real daughter when noticing the abysmal state of her room. Angry Papa Bear mode, Kim throws out that he's removing the console until Eve can completely clean the place up as punishment for it being dirty. After her adorable tantrum, we turn our heads to the Imperial Guild where a knight sneaks through a hole in their roof like a rat. Yeah, that's way too convenient. His mission is to rescue the 2 knights who were captured and aid them in getting rid of Kim himself. There are several problems with this plan, my man. The biggest of which is right behind you. Turning around to see the Chinese lolly glaring at him with an eerie smile, my man knows that he done goofed. Getting up close and personal with all the force of a steam train, she puts a good few dents in his skull and one in his gut, no doubt casting him to the same place as his comrades. Meanwhile, Kim is returning home after Eve had thrown a tantrum about her data being deleted from the console. Oh, ouch. Finding a welcome party waiting for him, the guy takes their initiative with a grin and gets punted out Shion's expensive glass window and down the merry way toward touching some grass. But as he grabs the weapon that Frost, former S-Rank World 6, throws at him, it just vanishes in his hands and finds its way back to the owner in time to strike Kim down. The mage has more in wait for him using sharp pieces of, I think that's paper, to bond Kim in a ball of armor that he pretty easily escapes from. Not sure how, but okay. The duo are clearly experienced, but even though he can keep up with them, he isn't able to land any hits. The clouds of magic block his view and allow the spearmen to get close. They know how to teamwork? These two really are elites. Kim has no choice but to use his latest move to get around them, something called distortion conversion. It's a fancy name for omoe wa mo shinderu. And after Whack is bonking the living hell out of the poor mage, he'd used it a bit too hastily after pouring mana into the flash. His internals are getting a bit scrambled from it, but it's still enough. Using his natural durability, Kim weathers a strike and takes his assailant on for a roller coaster ride. When poor Shion gets back the next morning, he finds his house destroyed overnight. The poor dude didn't even get to say goodbye to that fancy TV amongst other things. And then Soyeon comes in stating the obvious, that this place is a total she swears so casually? Why does this feel refreshing? Anyhow, she comforts the poor guy and says that the repairs should at least be handled by the Hunters Association, probably because Aries were the ones to do this. Shion then shows her the now trending video of Apartment Express, where Kim grabs the man by his neck and proceeds to yeetus deletus himself to the top, running up the damn building. Then pro wrestler moving the saw to his demise, though the reactions of the people aren't negative. What Shion dreads the most is the fact that he has to change his number. In compensation for all this, Kim throws him a little trinket of goodwill, and the Hyung tells him to cheer on up and take that. He's going to use the magic circle again and put Anja through hell doing it overnight. The poor woman, she's gonna die at this rate. Shion then checks what he has in hand and upon sight, promptly tells Kim to leave everything to him for the time being. Kim, for all his flaws and behavioral issues, always manages to diffuse the situations with a smile. Is this power learnable? Either way, he's researching into Martin Brand, the creator of the Aries Guild, while waiting for his wonderful office lady to prep the circle. She's an incredibly hard worker with circles under her eyes at this point. Checking one more time that his evidence is in check, the protagonist gets ready to throw his d20 and double checks the evidence is in place. Anja finishes her drawing and looks beat down to hell and gone, having probably worked a great deal of overtime. He throws a phone at her, ordering her to hand that to Soyeon when she can. For now, he wants to go to the Aries Guild main office entrance. Time to settle the score. Well, settle it as much as he can anyhow, for where he's instead taken is a long underground hallway of some kind, one where dust is clear in the air. His first thought is that Anya betrayed him, but the voice from behind him throws that straight out the window. Martin Brand in the flesh. He's glad that Kim knows of him. That should make this a lot easier on the talking. Kim is also aware that Mr. Martin, not of the Lockheed variety, had sent assassins to take him out more than once. Kim is very surprised to learn that they were nothing but bait, testing the waters of the 9th floor guardian. Unable to scan. Seems we were right all along. Props to anyone in the comments who figured that out before now. Guess Kim's luck is in today, getting rid of all these annoyances called problems in one foul swoop. But is Kim aware of why, instead of letting him come to the main office and likely cause a media storm, Martin redirected his teleportation here? It wasn't just so he could show off like everyone else. The room itself is one giant trap. Nice of you to tell us, but even the main character's punch doesn't dent the boss. Because, say it with me kids, that would be too easy. He gets pushed by a force field while artifacts hover above, and reintroduces himself as the faker. I can't say that with a straight face, I'm sorry. Throwing his weapons at Kim with quite the abandon, it seems this one is all items and no bite. Using one of his higher abilities, Kim makes the mistake of using his trump card first. It tears the barrier a new one, surprising Martin, but the second kick isn't strong enough to land a clean hit. Instead, it's caught as his power fades into oblivion, knocking Kim back yet again. Just as we'd expected, Martin has used some kind of cheaty "I have the high ground now" trope and put this room into an effective anti-magic. Martin was able to analyze his prey's fighting style during the battles with the knights, and he noticed an important little factor. Kim tends to use his magic a lot more in attacks. The protagonist is getting real sick of hearing you talk, buddy, and that means it's time for a one-sided beatdown. Question is, who's it gonna come from? He asks if Kim really understands the situation he's in, being unable to use any form of skills. As we find out very quickly, Kim is in a hard spot. He dodges and dances around. Actually, oh, holy shoot, is that blood? Suddenly, this got very interesting. Largely untouchable until now, all the artifacts he's up against are S+ grade at minimum. Durability won't outlast them. Looking for the object causing this magic oppression field, he targets the staff and uses something he read that morning. Martin counters the now broken barrier with a spear to drive Kim away from him, making up the distance once more. How pitiful. Bro, he would have flattened you with his magic. You're just a cheap kid who uses mommy's credit card to get all the good stuff. Kim then backflips out of range and skids to a halt with dirt flying up everywhere. Martin continues to be impressed that Kim had managed to destroy the protection without the use of magic. He wasn't aware the Guardian's strength was that high. Deciding to show Kim the same kind of strength he had displayed, pulling out a cheat item that can borrow the traits of other items, doing what the Aries does best and steals all the good things from others. Kim can see the movements but not react fast enough to dodge. The blade smashes deep into his shoulder and bursts with light, while Martin, not done yet, brings over a Morningstar flail to whack him on the head and neck. Other weapons also join the fray, all of them copies, except for one. The original earth-shattering blade, Gigantomachia. It bears down on him with the force of a warhead, and as the name implies, it splits the earth. Yet it refused. He's still alive even if damaged and poisoned on his arm. We learn that they climbed the tower for a chance to sit at the very tippity top, and earn a seat. A seat? Really? You do all this for a chair? Kim then pulls the 9000 IQ move of using the system teleport to escape and recoup, now knowing how Martin fights. Using his own tricks against him, you clever little devil. He lands in front of a very concerned Eve, who rushes over and checks out her poor guardian's state. Kim uses his remote to change the room while back in his man cave. Martin stops like the child he is that's just lost his first battle. Aw, boo-hoo, cry me a river, you piece of trash. Though he is able to spot the magic thread that Kim used to escape, indicative of teleportation. Since it's still here, that means he jumped dimensions. Eve watches her master train in the first floor of the tutorial tower, having treated his wounds with a bit of magic. But over the course of his stay, Kim has finished some kind of training and is ready to return. Coming back from his extended vacation in the system room, Kim strides out of the glowing magic covered in bandages. Martin ain't giving him any seconds to rest, instead initiating the attack right away, saying Kim's words were big talk for someone who ran away. You got a set of steel between them legs, my man. Instead of running away, Kim just focuses on his martial arts and calmly goes into the phase and flow of the blossoming tree. He had originally given up trying to learn this because of the complex principles associated with it. Because while he always had plenty of teachers from comics and stuff, he never really had someone alive to ask. But while training for 6 hours in the system room, he had figured it out. Swishing his hand behind one of the blades just as it passes his arm, our boy uses this to redirect the tip in another direction via 2 simple movements. While Martin recovers from his surprise, every single weapon is deflected. Was this really the same Hyunwoo Kim he had fought a few hours ago? Yes it is. He was planning to enjoy the part of killing the Guardian slowly and painfully, but not anymore. Yeah, how the tables have turned, my fellow trash. Don't look at me like that, James. I never claimed to be a saint. Kim's appearance of confidence appears to be mistaken for arrogance, but just as a river flowing through its paces, Kim's hands slip and slide in under the man's wrist to knock the sword clean out. Using his Supreme Emperor's wrath, Kim throws the dude back into the nearest wall and gets above him, putting both hands together to smack him down in the gut, causing a huge crater beneath him. The second one is cut short by a dance of the artifacts, and Kim dodges this one more like a playful game than worried for his life. Gigantomachia then has the ability to absorb all skills of the other weapons. Yet another cheat. Go home, script kitty. Martin swings the blade down on a wolf-toothed Kim, who without much strain, catches the sword blade on. He absorbs the power within the blade, Martin's own power, and quickly gets back up in the master's face with a lunge that positions him in the perfect place to punch. The form, nature's reverse strike. Martin doesn't take this too well as you imagine. Without a trace of the master left and magic waves washing back over Kim from the impact of his blow, the fight ends on something of a melancholic note where he could finally take some deep breaths. The system winds up its notifications and rolls out a congratulatory panel for defeating the climber in hiding. His status scan would be updated to mid-rank. Gaining the man's subspace pouch and using it to contain the Gigantomachia sword from before, he wonders how he's going to get out of here, and poor knight number 6 opens the panel to a hidden bunker. You picked the wrong dungeon, fool! 3 days later in the Hunters Association branch of Korea, reporters flood a conference room where Kim is planned to give a statement on who had attacked at Xian's apartment. Using the recording of one of the knights, he name drops Martin Brand, which the press gobbles up like a rabid animal. He accuses the Ares Guild of all misfortune he's gone through recently and can't wait to see what they say. Then at home later that day, flooded by the trashy news media for a statement, he explains the Celestial Tower concept and just what kind of guardian he is to his friends, the Guildmasters. Nobody can wrap their head around it on the first go. Fair enough, guys. It had been a shock for Kim too, discovering things like this in season 1, but they had to know at some point before things got nasty. They wondered why someone with terrible temperament was going around crevice stomping. Oof, they ain't wrong though. But before he explains more, the press outside is beginning to annoy him. Xion offers to go, but no, he'd do it himself. Oh, sweet Scar there, my man. Looking like a true hero now. Stepping outside presumably to yell at them to shut the fluff up, he's greeted by a literal red carpet to a limousine, and Mi-young awaiting him with bodyguards keeping the annoying flies at bay. Yeah, I doubt that the press is gonna mess with some of the highest members of the infamous Imperial Guild. Taking her inside with the bodyguards, all 3 of the masters are in various states of shock, wonder, and maybe even a bit of admiration. He doesn't appreciate the bodyguards, so they vanish without a trace. And Seok-won, a bit fearfully, asks if she's who he thinks, the Supreme Dragon of the Imperial Pado Guild. Yup, that's her. After a few moments of comedy and cuteness, including a telepathic glare at Xion, she offers to take care of the little nuisances outside that annoy her precious master. She wants to go outside and start murdering everything in sight. Not happening, Cupcake. Then he gets a text message and actually begins to smile despite everything and his tiredness. Ares has finally responded to him. Sliding into the booth with the current Ares leader, the vice leader of the company ironically named Coward, who now has to clean up the Guildmaster's mess. Not to mention the paper sheet Kim had held up at the conference. VI, Roman numerals for 6, or is it that hottie from Arcane? Either way, the Knights and Martin all disappeared at the same time. Kim then starts his, shall we call it, negotiations after Coward asks what he wants. Simple. Hand over all dungeons in Korea and withdraw from the nation. Not unreasonable since they hurt so many people along the way. He walks out of this meeting with 40% of all of Ares' Korean dungeons. Yet Coward makes the mistake of trying to put a hidden mic on him. He pays for this quite handsomely via a harsh meeting with the masked warriors of Young's guild under her orders. Poor dude doesn't want to die, though to be honest, I don't think he has the courage to bug someone with a mic. While they finish up above, Kim is yelled at over and over by Eve for leaving the system room as the tutorial tower. She was so cold, sleeping on the floor. For an artificial being, she's quite quirky in her own right. Once the Guardian has entered the room, she can't call them again for 5 days. And that's a bit of a stupid rule if you ask me. If she has information he needs, for example, he opens the status window and asks if anything has changed. Indeed, he's gotten faster, and his personality check also got a boost. For more upgrades, he'd need to reach mid-rank. Oof, that doom and gloom expression, I can feel it in my soul. His question of how long it'll take is a good King Julian impression for one, and gets him a tidbit that the climbers may also have answers he seeks. Some of them are what's known as reclimbers, people who have reached the very top and have decided to restart, in a similar way to how he was trapped in the tutorial tower, only this time with a choice. Reaching the top of the Celestial Tower, as Faker had said, that'll never get old, was also they could earn a seat. Kim chooses this moment to leave and go about his duties, but not before the childish Eve begs for a reply station. Aw, look at how happy she is. Then, just outside of Hanam City in the Gyeonggi province, Kim looks upon a marvelous mansion being constructed in the woods, a residence that Young says is solely for him. I hope he takes this and doesn't have the poor girl waste all her money. Who would turn down a free house? He can't figure out why she's being so nice. Dude, seriously, it's not hard to just ask. Okay. Seeing her attitude, maybe it is a bit on the nose. Going back to Xian's place, they all relax a bit until Kim asks if she's ever going back to China. Not because he doesn't like her, but ain't she also a guild leader? Yes, she is. So she can go on home while the Hunters Association has summoned him to US soil. Time to make an even bigger scene, eh? It seems like they only want to add his stats to the global rankings. Since he has no plans anyhow, he takes the invite and begins prep work for heading out to their location. A few days later, and he's arrived with Xian and Ryung in tow. Meeting Liam, a high-ranked politician from Korea that Xian is familiar with, the guy is a fan of Kim's work. He does try pleasantries with the Dragon Emperor, but that goes as well as you'd expect. After putting his hand to some kind of scanner on a vault door that looks like something out of Fallout's Institute, go away Garvey, Kim enters and heads straight for the evaluation machine in the center. He lays his hand on the orb in simplicity, and it all comes to life for a brief moment. A menu then flashes him with the gathered information. His rank is... Coming out of her training ground, Soyeon sighs that the monsters were quite strong this time around. The blue-haired beauty thinks back to her time in the tower many years ago, but discards the notion that they're getting smarter. That is never a good idea. And jumping into her memories a bit more, we see her at a meeting with Xian, who asked to postpone the Labyrinth expedition for a few weeks. Then, in an uncharacteristic move which leaves her stumped, he asks, "What presents do girls like?" Hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right. Yeah, something ain't right with the amount of paperwork Coward has on his desk. Poor dude has to deal with the plummeting prices of Aries shares, all because of Kim. Then in walks his saving grace. Coward gets up with anger, saying that nobody was supposed to be allowed in, then sees who it is. Mason, a high-ranked congressman out of the International's Hunters Association. He's come to lend some hands as he had rather close ties to Martin Brand. And I think we may have just found our second climber in hiding. All Coward has to do is what he's told, and given his name, that would be the best option for him right now. Meanwhile, in the examination room for Mr. Kim, the poor guy is staring blankly. No thoughts, only chaos. At the pop-up from the ranking system, evaluation error. So you're telling me he's too strong to be measured? Saitama came knocking. He wants his hair back. Xian confirms that the thing isn't broken, and his ranking has fell a bit. Poor dude. Mi-ryung tries to spout that her master is above everyone and everything within the rankings, but she's very quickly shut up by him. Whilst hoping this wasn't all a big waste of his time, Kim is formally invited to stay for dinner, a celebration of the Hunters Association founding. He stays for the time being and eats his fill with that smug smile we've come to know and love. Then, out of the woodwork comes a big creep. Third in the global rankings, the arrogant tank thinks he owns Hyunwoo. I can hear the internal abuela stirring already. Give him the slipper. He tries making himself a big shot in Kim's eyes, but the dude only has his finger flicked off like a flea. In only a matter of seconds, the two men are at it, Kim dodging through the blow with Tank being the first to attack. This is self-defense at least. Trading the missed force for his own gut punch, Kim wonders if he'd hit too hard, but it seems like a guy with his name can take a good beating before going out, as he just stands up angrier than before. Oh no. Target acquired. Seems someone got a new training dummy. Tank throws a rock at him which Kim sidesteps, but in doing so, the beef gets behind him and actually delivers a good punch. Seems the plot armor has expired. Wait, no it hasn't. Yeah, he's actually having fun again. Kim slips in and smacks the snot out of Tank with a crack at his head. Gonna make his skull ring, I tell you that. Once Tank has been stuffed up enough, Kim realizes if he's currently standing atop the third ranked in the world, wouldn't that mean he takes that place? Somewhere out among the wilderness and forest of a mountain range, a man is steeling himself against forces unknown which project a gloomy aura for all to see. Once complete, an old master congratulates him on learning the art of the blood eyes. What, did he have too much weed? Or quick legal note that we here at Action Toon do not condone its use. Now, if James would just... Thank you. Don't want to end up like the last clone. Standing well wreathed in a tangible aura of Vantablack, the man steps outside for some fresh air. He's already proven himself all he needs to. This man was no ordinary human, not by any glance nor aura you've ever experienced. This is the Phantom Soldier, the #1 hunter in the S rank worldwide. Meanwhile, Soyeon and Sokwon are now learning the news of Kim giving Tank the fisticuffs in Washington. She had a feeling he was going to cause trouble, but probably not this soon. Yeah, we all saw it coming. Kwon isn't so concerned because he knows his friend is strong and hardy enough to take anything they throw at him, but this may attract unwanted attention from everyone looking to scheme. Hey, you two, remember Manager from the Aries? If Kim can outwit and outclass the head of a freaking guild branch several times over, I'm sure he'll be just fine. Yeah, see? He's easily curb stomped way too many corrupt organizations looking to silence him. Up in Washington, Xian opens up a present he'd gotten for this mysterious girl he got eyes on and seems pleased with it, only for him to shove it back in the paper bag as soon as a knock comes. Liam has come to check that they are enjoying the accommodations and to fetch Hyunwoo for a little bit of chat concerning things that had happened earlier. While Kim walks out of the room, the Imperial Dragon tries to follow him as a bodyguard, but is promptly told to stay behind. She glares at Liam in jealousy and hostility, trusting nobody with her sacred master, before walking sadly back to her seat aside Xian. Or maybe not. Oof. She'd rather take a table than sit next to someone else? Ice Queen to the core. And it's here when Xian finally reveals who he's in love with. He tries making small talk and gets to ask the question of what Kim likes. That's actually a tough thing to answer. He's never exactly said the kinds of things he enjoys, but hey, you can't go wrong with food. Oh, and as Xian mentions, money. Oh wait, oh no, don't mention that to her, well, this ought to be fun. Meanwhile, in the conference room, Kim is chowing down on cookies while Liam gets to the point. He wants Hyunwoo on his side because of the other high-rank politician, Mason, who is backed by people like the first S-rank in the world, and Tank. The other guy isn't worth mentioning. Point is, Mason is starting to show a sleight of hand, and that means things are going to get very ugly very quickly. Kim returns after a short while and questions Shion on what his gifts are. An embarrassed Shion tries to play it off as souvenirs, but we all know there's more to it than that. He slips out of the conversation by asking what Liam had said to Kim in the interim. TLDR, the main character is free to do as he pleases. He's also allowed to teleport around the world at his leisure. That's a lie. And he should consider coming to the party for the top 50 hunters in a few weeks' time. Meanwhile, a certain Mr. Mason is preparing some things within the Ares Guild, and he asks Howard start some of his own precautions by giving him a pitch black marble of some kind. If he does as he's told, Mason will show him how to control his guild members. Meanwhile, in the outskirts of Washington, guess the maids must be doing a lot of cleaning. The big scary Tank is waking up in the hospital bed amidst a rainstorm. I don't like where this is going. One thunderous flash of lightning later and Mason reveals himself. He'd warned of Hyunwoo, but Tank didn't listen. He got pummeled into the ground and had his ultimate ability busted by the advanced player, who used techniques similar to the Phantom Soldier. Speak of the devil, and he shall arrive. With him having finished all preparations on the side, Mason was now ready to show his true face and make his move. I'll get the popcorn, James gets the drinks. No, James, hey, no alcohol on this channel. 2 weeks pass with Mason now checking the crowds through his open blinds, wondering if Kim could really make his appearance at the event. He'd asked with all the sweetness after all. Fourth says to give it a rest, while Seventh, hello, nurse, says he should have been emailed the invitation. For the time being, they all head down to enjoy the festivities and chatter with sparks flying freely. Everyone is talking happily and trying to make connections, useful ties for later down the line of their lives maybe, until Fourth is startled by Tank and Soldier being present. But why is Soldier here? He never visits the association gatherings. Grabbing the face of a person trying to make pleasant conversation, how rude. The dude turns its target's head into a shade of fine mist without batting an eyelid. Back at the Aran Guild's HQ, Soyeon is getting a little bit annoyed at her place being used for the magic teleportation circle. He rather quickly agrees to move the circle, which causes poor Anya some pain. While he's assuring Soyeon that the teleportation will only be used for work purposes and not for vacations, Night 6 wakes up in the closet. Yeon goes to let him out, but slams the door closed out of shock for the mortifying face coming right for her like a Freddy's jump scare. Kim doesn't seem to think that trapping someone in a room for a month without light is torture. That should tell how twisted he can be at times. While the knight spills his knowledge on Ares, the event hall for the top hunters event is littered with blood, bodies, and rubble as Soldier, Tank, and Sixth take out everyone in sight. Liam is trying to get people away from the hall as fast as possible to avoid more carnage than necessary. He's shuddering in his fancy boots at just how quickly the top 50 are being taken out by those in the top 10. It ain't even been 5 minutes. Insert obligatory Shrek meme here. Tank is about to show Liam what black eye feels like when Fourth gets in the way. Seventh is dealing with Six and getting choked to death. Aye, you don't do that to a lady. Liam asks loudly why the hell they were doing all of this, and Phantom bluntly says to destroy the world. But before his goal could be accomplished, and with perfect timing, the big boy arrives. Fact-checking with Liam before battle, he doesn't get a chance to be answered before Soldier seeks an audience, while Heavy pummels the snot out of a demon knight in the background. Phantom Soldier introduces himself and Meeting alerts her master to what the name means. Seems that Soldier is trying to climb the tower, and he needs to kill the Guardian to make that happen. Shooting a bullet of darkness without further question, our boy takes the brunt to his hand without so much as a scratch and uses status scan. Odd. He can actually get information on this guy. Simple answer, he's not a climber, yet. He's going to become one by destroying the earth and starting his rampage up the ranks. Throwing a punch at Kim, which is in front of his face a split second before he can react, our boy ducks it with only a hair's breadth to spare. Landing on his hands amidst the rubble-laden floor, Kim strikes with a sweeping kick, which gets grabbed. Soldier has heard that he's also a master at some kind of martial arts. Time to show off what he's really made of against numero uno. Hope Kim has a reverse card ready. He goes through 3 walls with the Phantom's throw and starts falling from a height that would undoubtedly kill anyone else. Meteor tries to lend her aid, but both Tank and Sixth block her way. I wouldn't be so confident when she's at the level of your crotch and knows how to throw a punch. Meanwhile, the two legends battle it out on the exterior gardens with a good many explosions, one dodging while the other weaves another attack into play. Choosing speed over brute force but lacking in neither, Soldier furiously comes at him with a variety of hand strikes, which Kim somehow manages to block. Pulling out his current ace, he uses a similar technique to that of the 10-step extermination and expands the magic in the area to begin crushing his opposition. It's not enough to damage the Soldier, but it is enough to halt him so Kim can charge his ultimate. Going for a full TPK this early? The attack clearly lands square on its target, but to our dismay, that's a big nope from him, Chief. He took the blast like it was another freaking Tuesday. That was interesting, but I'm disappointed. Oh my wa, mo shinderu. Uh-oh. He too has discovered the power of an abuela. Wackus bonkus. The first to the back of Kim's head is enough to distort his vision, which is saying something considering he could still live after facing Martin's S+ grade weapons, even if with injuries. Punting him head over heels into the ground and making a meteoric path through the stone floor, Soldier notes that Kim's magic is just overflowing without control. His core ain't even been formed properly. Oof. Wonder what will happen when it inevitably does. The Soldier mentions that his skill allows him infinite training time to master any art of his choosing, but if Kim was going to be an insult to martial arts any further, he'd have to be shown what true fighting skill looks like. Using some kind of flashy red and black palm strike, Soldier blasts Kim back into guard mode and shatters the earth beneath him. Using great agility to appear behind him, Soldier also uses a skill of Chunma in form of the demonic fist to plummet our hero straight down into a flurry of Nova kicks, bloody wind fist, demonic dragon fist, heavenly strikes. You get the point. The apex of which is a northern sky divine spirit. By this point, I'd be surprised if Kim is still able to stand, let alone fight. But as we see here, his stamina is rather impressive. That's what she said. While the brute soldier thinks over his next moves, Kim considers running away to the system room like last time. But that would mean this creep kicks the stuffing out of Miryong, manning up once more to fight for what he believes in. And that's my boy. Kim takes a combat stance and gets ready for the beating being delivered by Express. Soldier is intrigued by this because despite the protagonist being out of breath and dizzy AF, he still chooses to defend the earth. The system alerts him that he's taken attacks that should have killed him. Thanks for the vote of confidence. But his stamina grade would further zoom up into the heavens. Soldier has had enough of this malarkey and uses a spectral dragon. That's not martial arts. To finish the scrub off before he could recover and become a half-decent threat. A voice then comes from behind him as Kim disappears. Are you surprised? Giving Soldier a taste of his own attack, Kim begins to use every single move that his opponent had without flaw. This ain't no imitation. He's actually figured each and every one of the moves out fundamentally and applied it to his own combat. Nova kicks, bloody wind fists, demonic dragon fists, heavenly strikes, even the northern sky divine spirit. The biggest question, how? By filling his eyes with mana, watching Soldier's magic move, using him as a teacher in the middle of battle. That is ingenious, but it comes with quite the price tag. Meanwhile, inside the building, Tank is still trying to assert dominance over the Chibiryong, who just wants him to shut up and get out of the way. She had hoped to observe how Kim was fighting outside, maybe to learn quite a few new techniques in the process and be one step closer to the level of her master. But seems she won't get this after all. If they live, they would get in his way. They must be killed right now. Those eyes. Does she know what a soul is? Tank tries to speak, but she's gone before a word can be uttered off his tongue. Behind the mountain of a man, 6th rank is... Oh my god, you freaking killed him. This is enough to make the muscular meatloaf shudder. Her movements were untraceable. Meanwhile, outside in the dust and evening smog, Soldier has had enough. Time to bring out his ultimate, the Market Gardener. Demonic Phantom Transformation. Though, I can't wait to see him score a direct hit. The guy ain't even a climber yet and he looks like the spawn of Satan? May Lady Karma have mercy on your soul, man. Even Kim wouldn't be able to copy this. Well, no, but actually, yes. Hold up, what? Since when? Letting his mana rampage outward, the man allows divine lightning like that of Chunma himself to creep forth from the floating orb thingy at his back. At first, he couldn't figure it out, but as he had finally begun to grasp the principles behind martial arts, he had more of a toolbox to work with now. The form he's taking is like that of the God of Lightning, who he had defeated, and now Kim was raring for round 2. Heck yeah, dude, this is action gold. Inside the building, Miryong has dealt with Tank after an easy win over 6th, and he screams at her, asking how her, Kim, and Soldier can bust through his ability. Instead of giving him a good answer, the dragon's foot pushes him back into the ground. How does someone so slim possess so much power? Oh well, it's Manhwa logic. She just claims to use martial arts instead of fancy skills, but at this point, I'll let it slide. On the outside once more, Kim is keeping up with the Soldier under great effort from his part. Strike after strike, his lightning finds its ground, like if you get the physics, and the two are pretty much evenly matched in their ultimate forms. Though Kim's whole body is aching and Soldier can't gain the upper hand, both come to the realization that this would need to be ended quickly. Soldier puts together a massive swirling black hole of negative energy, preparing his final fatal blow, which is sure to finish the fight. But as Kim points out, that was nothing but a huge lump of magic without much direction. Isn't that the exact thing he was criticized for doing earlier? Soldier yells that it don't matter when he does it, because there's no way Kim could block this. Wanna bet? Pulling all the force into a crackling mass between his hands, Edgy Kamehameha is primed and ready in just a few short seconds. This demonic extinction beam is, however, ineffective. Divine Lightning had caught the blast before it could do much damage, but in return for the moves Kim had been shown, he'd reveal some more of his own. Lightning Counterstrike is the first move to be used, and it's more than enough of an overpowering zap to take out the remaining health of the would-be climber, as evidenced by the giant explosions, excess of whooshing, and notification of defeat. His status scan had been upgraded from lower mid to mid rank, and a new summoning timer from Eve makes its debut, 3 days. Kim flops back as the sun begins to rise, noticing something left on the ground. A rag of some kind? No, but that's an item, the incomplete source of the Great Calamity's power. It does require something to do with the labyrinth in order to activate, but he'll think of that after a few good days of sleep. Within Kim's Guardian Guild the day after their incident, the kids he'd allowed to join are talking about how the whole world was turned on its head by the events at the banquet. The people were massacred, and yet all these teenagers can think of is how awesome their guild leader is. I guess it's something to focus on instead of the death. 33 of the 42 hunters were killed, and 4 of the only 9 surviving were so badly injured that they had to resign their positions. The girl is told by Anya that the media is manipulating things away from the horrors and to the investigation taking place. If Kim found out about that, he wouldn't be too happy. Meanwhile, in Murica, he's lying in a hospital bed in full cast with Soyeon coming to pay a visit. After checking on his injury, she goes to take a look at the hospital procedures, presumably to find out what'll happen to him. When she's gone, he actually winces in pain from raising his arm. The after effects are no joke. If it had been anyone else out on the field that day, if it had been literally anyone else trying to do what he had, they would have turned their brains into toast on the first attempt. Seems Kim has to go out and find some ways to improve his overall training. Maybe find a good few books to read. Maybe find someone to learn from. Oh, wait a second. There is someone he can learn from. Eve. Taking the band to her, he asks what this labyrinth power gauge is all about, and she starts by examining the thing and finding a clue about it. Something to do with its namesakes, the labyrinths. Thank you, Captain Obvious. His new skill, Mind Access, would allow 30 seconds of reading someone's thoughts. After Eve tells Kim something important, we get a look of his mind reading in action. Wow, she's really devoted. And that's why mind reading is a blessing and a curse. Asking where Soyeon is, she had returned to Korea after hearing that he'll be discharged soon, though he'll need to go downstairs and deal with the reporters quickly before they give him more of a bloody headache. They quickly grind his patience into the dirt by not calming down, making him force his way through the crowd and past a very disgruntled reporter, one who tries to stir the hornet's nest by dropping his own manners in front of old man Kim. Oh, you have a clear-cut death wish, my friend. Making up some rumor on the darn spot, he annoys the advanced player so much that he's told to just get lost. The interview would be over in about 30 seconds if that particular reporter didn't leave. Got him by the family jewels, huh? As the guy who sulks away, an assassin appears behind Miryung and they are told to take care of it. Oh, I didn't literally mean a death wish. Well, shoot. Nope, not me, James. Put that down. Ugh. As Shion next reads, the reporters are being a bit creative with the truth as Kim had allegedly asked the guy to leave politely, which we all know isn't in his dictionary. Kim and Young take a seat opposite him and she gets head pats while Kim wonders how his other student is doing. Huh? There's another one? While in the tower, he had thought of trying to escape by teaching a student. That didn't work. However, there was another who had asked to be taught. He had grown out of the 8th grader syndrome by that point and begun to give her some real training, though is unaware of how much it actually helped. Shion watches his friend get lost in Wonderland with Alice and then notices an article about the reporter who had really fired the question at Kim. He'd gone missing? That wasn't Hyunwoo's style, although... Yeah, let's just stick to being nice, shall we? At the Ares Guild's Korean branch, Kim arrives to have a meeting with Coward once more. The guy can't afford to lose 40% of his dungeons in this country, but Mason is of no use anymore. After that incident, he'd be hard-pressed to keep a low profile, and even then, the balance of power had shifted in Liam's direction, so he had a lot more of his own stuff to do. Breaking Coward from his thoughts, Kim enters with the usual swag and slippers to plop down in a seat opposite the poor guy. Before he can try negotiating any of the terms, Kim just tells him to cut to the chase. Neither of them want this to drag out, right? He wants 40% of all dungeons, and he just pretend nothing ever happened between him and Ares. Coward jumps up to try arguing, but doesn't get more than a word in before Kim's pull out a phone with a recording of Knight 6, who's begging for mercy and to be let out of confinement. Poor Coward ain't getting out of this mess no matter what Hyunwoo has to do. But in case he had any ideas on betrayal, he's gonna get some good advice free of charge. If you decide to reject my offer, then Ares is going to suffer even more than it already has. Outside Hanam City in the mini mansion built for Hyunwoo by Miryung, the Dragon Emperor herself stands overlooking the main window. A subordinate in white robes, presumably her second in command, alerts his mistress that they have successfully taken over the entirety of the Chinese guilds and basically owned the country. She actually laughs and tells him, "Good job," with a chuckle which, when coming from the previously emotionless leader he'd come to fear and respect, is a far cry from her history. A few months prior, she'd barely been more than a doll hellbent on domination. But since Hyunwoo, she'd become a completely different person both inside and out. That's what happens when you get to meet the right person, folks. She then asks if that reporter was taken care of, and another one of her subordinates appears with a whoosh, saying they were unable to do the thing because of a third party got in the way? Someone beat the Pato Guild to the punch? That's new. Storgle signs are indicative of a kidnapping, and by the time they had arrived, he was already gone in the wind. She glares straight through them with an anger of bloodlust, bringing with it the reveal of a mysterious symbol that looks suspiciously familiar, but I can't say the comparison here. She orders them to go and find out who had targeted the reporter, presumably to reclaim their own prey. White Robe then asks how long she's going to be away from the guild headquarters, and the answer comes as you'd expect. When her teacher decides to return to China, so will she. Until then, everything is left in his capable hands. He's moved that she would do such a thing as allow full control to him, as Miryung is known to be distrusting of all. I don't think that's how this works, mate. Anyway, living with his friend again for the time being, Kim alerts that he has something to take care of before the dungeon transfers are complete within 2 weeks. It seems Mason and Coward are up to something in the background, and he really doesn't fancy it. Deciding with the iconic wide-toothed grin of a vampire, I mean, look at those teeth. He's gonna go and return the favor. When will we get to see some slipper action again? That's like his best move. Jumping into the cursed sewers of Uijo? Nope. Jumping into the cursed sewers, we find skeletons of former residents and presumably hunters walking about in old clothing, while the Ares Guild manager, Sokhyun-oh, sneaks by by using an invisibility skill named Conceal. Very intuitive. He just has to lay this strange black marble in the ground by digging a bit, and then he'd be able to secure a director's position. Oof. Using some cheap dirty tricks out here to control the guild. Kim seems to agree, and James is enjoying the malicious tactics. Of course he is. Coward sweats out his fears when Kim appears in his office in less than 6 hours with the Imperial Dragon. Emphasis on imp. Looking how tiny she... never mind. Yeah, Coward. I agree that you're fluffed. His bodyguard's nowhere in sight. Kim whacks the guy and says they should really stop overreacting. He didn't hit that hard. He accurately predicts Coward's thoughts, and this just gets a massive sigh from the protagonist, who's getting real sick and tired of going through the motions. If the Ares deputy head knows he done goofed, why is he not begging for mercy? They all react the same way. They all use the mirror image of tactics, and they all end up the same. Bruised or beaten for the unnecessary pains in the behind they are. Coward is going to start talking right about now, or real quick, he's going to learn the hard way what having his head smashed open with a rock feels like. That's a bit heavy-handed, don't you think? But Coward explains it the exact way Mason had to him. These little black orbs are detonators. In the early days of managing dungeons, when people had no brain cells or understanding of them, monster waves occurred when these places spawned excess mobs that would overflow into the streets. Those incidents earned them the infamous name, and the stone sitting in his hand is something which can incite these waves into being. Once they hand over the dungeons to Kim, they can activate these and shame him for not managing the places correctly. They get their 40% back, he gets a bad rap under the press. The only thing that fails to make sense is why Mason would even want to get rid of Hyunwoo Kim after the Phantom Soldier incident. If the name sounds different, it's just a newer translation, please bear with us. Thanks in advance. After Coward is intimidated enough, we get a shot of Mason going through his genius master plan to destroy the world. He's a climber, overfilled with confidence when Martin allied with him. The two low-rank hunters were doing well with their plan to spawn monster waves from every dungeon in the world. Then Hyunwoo appeared, and the floodgates of hell opened as climbers could, well, climb again. And Soldier was defeated. Rest in peace, Rick May. Obliterating the glass in his hand, Mason sighs out that he still has a plan B. The organization he's been building all throughout the background, only having left because the Phantom needed training. But instead of them stagnating upon his resignation, they had grown on their own and become quite the force to be reckoned with. Boxes and boxes of detonators lay in front of him. I count at least 15 full crates ready to be shipped worldwide for the destruction of Earth. Being asked if he's happy now, Mason answers yes, before realizing that he's supposed to be all alone. Kim had the high ground, but stooped down to your level of the bunker. Eve had correctly guessed that Mason was the second climber, and now it was time to open the can of whoop on him. Spam with punches. Being tossed up through the ground of his own mansion like a comet, Kim reappears above him in due time and flattens Mason to his garden path mere seconds before landing on his head. Kim's magic lights like the 4th of July as he lifts his foot off the climber's skull, the divine form manifesting behind him with a swirling vortex of energy in form of the black hole, the ultimate energy battery. Hyunwoo then freezes in places at Mason's command. Oh snap. And he's then thrown back as the little man stands out in the dead of night, throwing his opponent off balance and to the cold stone floor where he just was. Mason makes the ultimate mistake of looking down on Kim. When you meet a man like him who gets a kick from revenge, don't do this. He kicks Kim back a good few paces using his own energy, causing the man's body to ring and reverberate all throughout as he loses all control of his motor functions. He just waltzed into Mason's abode without having the slightest idea of what his intent nor strengths were. How foolish. Did he think he could win no matter what? Pathetic. He was gonna have someone else deal with this little scamp of a guardian, but now he may as well do it all himself. Reap the satisfaction and reward, eh? He reintroduces himself as a pompous twat, the voice of this world and the keeper of words. Yeah? Because you ain't doing a good job at keeping them to yourself. Better kill him soon before he breaks that spell of yours. Getting as much as he can out of this chance though, Kim asks a few questions. How many climbers are there? No number, because even now new ones are being selected for their chance to go up the tower. In other words, he doesn't know. Okay, and what does he know about reclimbers? These are people who have lost their positions at the top and been expelled. They go back up to regain their authority. Having gotten what he wanted, Kim stands up through the spell, having figured out the mana control and puppeteering strings attached to him. It's a party trick versus his magic lightning. Effectively, he pumps magic through his channels to act as a disruptor to any binding effects. A makeshift magic shield. Mason recoils with an audible squeak while Kim flexes his hand, being reminded just how useful that fight with the Phantom Soldier was. This is the exact technique that was used to block his Asura's Flare Blast. Now it's his turn. Leaping high to bring his leg down and finish the attack from before, with a divine wrath kick under the starry sky, the ground practically explodes with a resounding rumble. The shockwaves emanating from this epicenter destroy most, if not all, of Mason's home. Though, even with his prey being oh so weak and timid, Kim didn't get a notification of death. Mason survived, teleporting away to the secret organization he'd mentioned before, and stepping forth from the shadows to welcome him back is none other than his mysterious other student. The next day at the International Hunters Association, Liam is shown the recording proof of Mason being involved with the massacre. He's immediately startled, and when confirming who it is, Kim just gives a satisfied smile with lazy eyes. Yes, this recording is very much real, and it must be hard to believe for Liam that one of his fellow congressmen would be involved in such a stunt, but this is perfect for him. All Mason's remaining allies would be shut down with this alone, although by virtue of Kim bringing it to him, there must be a trade in place here. Indeed, he catches on quick. Kim wants him to release this to the press instead of himself. That way the reporters don't fuss over him like the last time, and Mason's allies can't cover up any of the truth. It'd be different if a prominent man such as Liam releases it and points the finger. More official in capacity. Kim gets up and is about to leave once he's gotten what he wants. As you'd expect from him, before he can move for the door, he's asked one more question. Liam had seen the news that morning, and with great fear, he's asked if Mason is dead. Well, no. Young soldiers had searched everywhere but found no trace of him. Though the guide cannot hide behind his political rankings anymore, he would still be a nuisance to locate. Uh-oh? What's this notification? Skipping to the organization underground, pink hair until she has a defined name, asks what kind of business her boss man had to take care of. Soon as he mentions Hyunwoo getting in the way, she freezes and a fire of white begins to burn deep in her eyes. Oh, is that so? Yeah, that's why they need to stay hidden. Well, yes, but actually no. She expresses sympathies for his ignorance. She throws his hand off after laughing at his intimidation attempt. She had built this entire organization from the ground up, and he'd left them to go play with a model soldier, coming back under the illusion of ruling them. The real master of the Illumity is, can you guess? That's right, Kim Hyun-woo. She orders the chair be taken away as it's stained with the blood of a traitorous weasel. Yet his body begins to flash and fade out of existence, similar to a glitch in the system. So he was one of them, huh? No matter, this entire plot was made to aid her master in whatever return to the world he may make, and she was willing to do whatever it takes. Oh great, so he has two yandere girls chasing his affection. One owns China, the other Europe. Meanwhile, Kim is checking what the heck had happened with Eve, who confirms he's actually dead. There are no more climbers in hiding now, and Eve would like a new fancy toy to play with before he goes. Upon return, Kim and Medium climb in a fancy limo and head out to the labyrinth to start grinding for the meter. She asks with little concern if they shouldn't be waiting for the rest of his friends to come along as well. Nah, she should be enough. While the dragon gets all blushy over his comment, Kim checks the news to find out that every headline is already full with words about Mason. Gotta hand it to Liam, he works quick. Later within the dungeons, Kim is charged by a goblin with hair who quickly learns the error of his ways. He's wondering why there are so many of them when he's alerted off the next wave and decided to take care of it himself. Taking on a fighting stance and dashing through the goblins without a one-horse open sleigh, the rest of them just watch as he rips through the ranks with a gleeful grin. They would have to get used to this kind of power when bringing him along. Both Sokwon and Soyeon are impressed and then some by the sheer force in his abilities. While Siyeon considers that while they could in theory take out this many, they can't do it nearly as easily as their oppa. He's brought back from the thoughts by their bag carrier thanking him for letting him tag along. Oh hey, I remember this kid. Can't remember his name though. His livestream is going well it seems. Kim is quite the popular guy. But for now, he was gonna head up to the surface, but neither of them can read a map. Oof. It's alright, Backpack Boy will lead the way. He's not getting paid much for this, but stream donations would cover the rest. Meanwhile, in a castle far, far away, that news journalist who'd insulted Kim gets a decent wake-up call when cold water is thrown his way. The boss lady enters and Mr. Smarty Pants quickly puts together what's going on from her words. She just smiles all cheerily and taps a button on the Electra console. It's quite shocking how crazy his students can be. Seeing the symbol on her jacket, his thoughts leap on back to the office and a fellow member of the press acting a little strange when it came to slandering Hyunwoo Kim. It was a warning that writing fake articles on Hyunwoo just to get some form of internet fame and attention would be very bad for his health. That same symbol was a tattoo on his neck. Why is she trying so very hard to control that kind of information on him? Why? Because she's a disciple of his, of course. Are there any other crazy chicks we need to know about Hyunwoo? Anyhow, with the labyrinth gauge being fully charged, Kim is barred from releasing the effect of its power more than once, and it'd be weaker as its owner failed to become a climber. Choosing to use it then and there with Chunma's sword, Kim is then taken away by a blast of magic which swirls him up into oblivion, which turns out to be quite a nice forested zone, where Chunma, the god of martial arts, stands in wait for his old foe under a very decorative gazebo. Up on the 8th floor of the tower, a dragon is coughing up blood and flinching at the words of the one sitting idly before it. They had thought this was a guardian, but it's no stronger than any other he's faced. The dragon asks how such a tiny beastman could possess so much power, but that's the obvious mistake of judging a book by its cover. This kid ain't just a small monkey of a man. This is the great sage, Heaven's equal, the Monkey King. Now skipping down to wherever the heck he was taken, Kim stands before Chunma, who is very startled at his presence in the grassy forest this fine evening. That's really odd though. How would he even be recognized down here? The Great Calamity skill is supposed to let you go to the items past. Chunma shouldn't have met him yet. Asking again how Kim had gotten into the Phantom World and if he had finally died, well, no, not quite. Though he'd have to explain a few things to Kim as it doesn't. Oh, he's ignoring the main character. Whatever, it's fine, it's fine. You just need to calm down. Assess this new situation. Something about the effects here being much weaker than its intended use. Okay, you know what? Who cares? He came here for a reason and it was standing right in front of him. Asking Chunma to teach him some martial arts. The immediate answer is get lost. Kim tries again, same answer. And again, just a simple no. Then trying something that would likely give him quite the big headache, he'd have to use his arch rival of patience. The guy don't fancy teaching the person who killed him, which is honestly fair. He even tries the route of being a bit more pleasant and smiling, which just looks creepy more than endearing. And this seems to be where the line is drawn. Wasn't he the one who was adamant about not needing a teacher, instead choosing to rely on his frankly pathetic techniques? Kim has enough of this very quickly and brings out his ultimate moves. To cut a long story short, Chunma just starts wiping the floor with Kim, and for the very first time, Kim experiences what it's like to die. On the other side, in the real world, Kim had flatly disappeared after touching Chunma's sword, which is what Midyung confirms with quite a side glare at Shion. Would be very nice if he told them his plans beforehand. Come now, where's the fun in that? With the Imperial Dragon looking like something of an abandoned pet, Shion goes to leave so he doesn't throw flame on the dynamite and spots two of her soldiers positioned on the roof. They instantly vacate the premises, and he's left hoping that his apartment will be repaired soon enough. But while he's daydreaming of a nice hot bath in his own place, Midyung hears a strange voice coming from Kim's subspace that had been left on the couch. That familiar yellow glow could only mean one thing. You can hear my voice, human. They aren't using magic, yet she's still the only one who seems to be able to listen in. The voice says that she should be able to control its power. Does she seek any of it? Looking into the bag, Midyung sees a face we all recognize from the end of season 1. The mother of all monsters, the diving spectral queen. Meanwhile, in the Phantom World, Kim tries his luck over and over again at beating up Chunma, and each time he fails hard. Putting his foot down with a stomp, the swing is easily countered with a grab to his shirt, following as he spun around like a fan and sliced clean down the middle. Kim yells at him to stop this and just teach him some martial arts already, as Chunma has long since gotten revenge by now. The lightning god is satisfied, so if Kim could just stop his farce and begin getting out of his sight, that would be great. Not happening. Though even someone with a brick for a head should have realized the outcome of any battle by now. There's no way to defeat Chunma down here, not just because he can't die. 100 fights, 100 losses. Kim can't win against this kind of master, no matter how much he seems to put into the battle. For the first time, he's met an an opponent who actually towers over him in strength, no pun intended. But just because he is currently unable to stand up to the might, that doesn't mean he'll never be able to. He's just not strong enough, yet. Warning Chunma not to get too big for his boots, as anything in the world could happen in their following battles, Kim closes his eyes and begins to concentrate hard. Sweat drips from his brow as his focus shifts rapidly into gear, pulling together the fragments of thought that would combine into an epic burst of strength. Just focus on beating Chunma up nice and good, that's all. As this deeper level of conscious is reached, Kim goes zooming for the lightning god, who still considers this man of many legends nothing more than an itty-bitty thorn on his side. How annoying. Easily having him with the swipe of the sword, the system static and crackle prevents the death by piecing him back together without delay. Kim slips a fist at his opponent with speed that surprises him, forcing Chunma to dodge. Something has immediately changed about him, attacking as soon as he revives. 103 times, 104 times, 120, 150, 200, 300, 500, 600, 700? Don't think you can beat me with those skills, says Chunma. Kim's motions cannot even be considered martial arts right now, and wouldn't ever accomplish anything unless his yin-yang was awakened. Teaching him already by telling him what he lacks, but our man, remembering his past as a child, his hard work as a teenager, his time trapped in the tower, all of it, everything. He had never given up once during all of that, and there was no way in any kind of fresh hell he was giving up now. 1 boom, 2 booms, 3 booms, 4? Chunma is intrigued by this man's parkour. Had to. He's more reckless than Chunma had initially thought. In this phantom world, nobody could die here, as the very concept of death had been stripped. There was only boredom and waiting for their chance to climb once more. He eventually agrees to teach Kim martial arts, under a condition impossible to accomplish. They don't tell us what this is, sadly, but even then, Chunma never intended to teach this man martial arts. He would just use this opportunity to teach Kim a lesson. That's what he had thought, at first. After the first 100 kills, his satisfaction was replaced by respect. He starts to fight Kim with intent. At 200 kills, it was a lot of fun seeing him die over and over. Then came 400, easily fading to 700. It was quite gratifying to destroy him. Then 1,000 times. He had crushed these so-called martial arts without a question and felt certain of one thing at least, that Kim wouldn't get back up. He was wrong. An odd and unfamiliar feeling fell over Chunma, watching his prey never give up. At 2,900 kills, that feeling was recognized, something he hadn't felt for a long time, as ever faint as a feather residing upon his shoulder, the unmistakable feeling of danger. When was this guy ever going to give up? Over 2,900 times by now had he been killed, and Chunma had to destroy this dude 100% to eradicate this sense of unease. Oh, but that move was a bit of a hasty one. Kim appears out of nowhere in front of Chunma and decks him in the jaw, throwing the man rearward into an arched back. It took exactly 2,995 tries. Truly, nothing was an impossibility. Meanwhile, down in the depths of the tower, the Azure Lion had come back to his comrade. Things had gone smoothly so far. The dragon behind him dead for 3 months. The other two, the Great Pung and the White Elephant, also arrive in due time and state that the east and west were taken care of. The antenna dude couldn't believe they had seats in the tower, yet were stuck down here taking 5 months to destroy a mere single region. The Azure Lion lectures him and introduces them at convenience of the plot, also stating that the antenna dude is a high-rank climber, the 3 demon kings of Lion Camel Ridge, the predator to devour 100,000 men from hunger, the Azure Lion, the tusked beast that could wrap her trunk around anything except Hyunwoo's rage, the White Elephant, finally the ruler of the skies, who had invaded and devoured an entire nation, the Great Pung. As soon as they're done talking, the tower surges from the ground. In the 9th layer, Sion gets a call of the impending disaster that will strike in 3 hours. They need Kim's help, now. The battle rages on in this phantom world, Kim being thrown through tree after tree. Time was of no consequence here, only the tally of wins and losses keeping track of any energy spent. Kim gets deep fried in lightning, only sighing out of the pain and kicking at Chunma as a diversion, to try getting at his face. For his trouble, another thick coating is applied, and Chunma still thinks he's a giant fool. That marked the 5,000th time he had died. But Kim didn't seem to freaking care. He just gathers energy in his fist while the lightning god tries to pick apart his brain. Find what keeps this person going so bloody far that he'd continue to fight despite 0 chance of winning. He hasn't taken a single break since they started fighting, but why? How can someone keep fighting in a situation like this? He must have gotten some kind of desperation after starting to use his divine lightning copy at 3,200 deaths. But even when he gets zapped while trying to do that get over here meme, shocking, isn't it? Come on, everyone has to make that joke at least once. He still pushes through and grabs Chunma by the coat while being repaired. This is the second time he's managed to catch Chunma off guard. "You're like a rabid dog," he says almost playfully. That sense of danger was now long gone, replaced by something else. Something more comforting. Respect. Chunma had started with nothing and rose through the ranks of the tower by his sheer willpower. rightfully earning his rank of being an equality to the heavens. He'd run into many a kind of person while climbing the tower, but never one with this kind of unbreakable spirit. Like he doesn't know the meaning of the word give up in the most cheesy protagonist way. Yet it's somehow endearing. Finally, Chonma gives in and begins teaching Kim the basics of his skills. Time began to fly, the 8,002nd time coming rapidly, then the 8,423rd. Every step of his starts to feel different when he starts learning. Pretty soon, the death counter goes over 14,000, but he gets it. Divine Lightning is the perfect technique. This is the final test he has to go through. Kim had created his own form to merge the lightning with his magic, and then destroy that form he had worked so hard on. Now all he had to do was create his own style. Before Kim had done this, his teachers were all imaginary. His progress had all but come to a grinding halt. But now he could stand toe-to-toe with the lightning god themselves. On the other side of the sword, the Hunters Association had been evacuating all critical areas. At first they had just a single disaster to worry about, but now that's quadrupled. That's right, there were 4 consecutive disasters cropping up all over the damn world. Seokwon, Xion, and Soyeon would have to deal with it themselves, and the Supreme Dragon would have to figure out what to do with herself. At his latest death, Kim had stopped letting Chonma walk all over him. 2 sets of thunder rage in this phantom landscape, coursing across the sky in veins of pure light and energy mixed with magical prowess. Waves of harmony blast out from Kim's magical wormhole thingy, and even Chonma has to admit it. This man is a bona fide monster. Has he already mastered his new technique? No longer was his magic the gathering just for show. The black wings that have sprouted from the orb of black prove it. To think that now, after almost 14,500 deaths, Kim would be pushing him back was unfathomable. Chonma's scabbard is quickly knocked out of his hands by a kick. Getting a kick straight in his face, Kim does a backflip and grins to himself just like back then while he closes the small amount of distance between the two of them. Chonma doesn't even bother to dodge the incoming kick, ready to take it straight to the face. But of course this doesn't happen. At the very last second, Kim diverts himself and appears a short distance away. "Why did you not kill me?" asks the man. Kim glances at him a bit embarrassed before turning back and stretching. A student shouldn't kill their teacher. Kim then begins to activate the return sequence, yelling, "Thanks for everything, you crappy teacher," at the retreating Chonma. Well, ain't that cute. Back on Earth, in Montana of the United States, Mr. Sun Wukong the Monkey King is making his first appearance in front of the military. An on-duty female hunter yells that he's coming through and all vehicles begin their rain of fire at the portal. All the bullets and high explosive rounds hit at once, and if that were any normal foe, they would have turned to pieces. But this is a disaster class monster. Wukong briskly moves past her, changing his mind about taking care of them himself. In Thailand, the Great Pung is also having their moment with pondering just how a civilization like this could be so weak. They lasted about as long as the 8th layer. One problem though. A familiar slipper enters the scene. "Grab your bingo card, everyone. How long will this one last?" The bird asks if Kim is still going to challenge it after seeing the carnage, but Kim is more confused at what a pung is. They don't like being ignored and with the blaze of light, set their wings on a fiery flame to turn our man to a burn stain on the floor. Are these the spicy wings a certain colonel keeps going on about? Pung had planned to lay Kim out under a siege of burning rage, yet they crackle and pop with a single attack. Wow. Talk about power. It is only from the menu pop-up that Kim learns he's now in Thailand of all places, having not landed from where he took off. I suspect Eve has something to do with this one. And jumping back to Korea briefly, Kim's friends had gotten used as dish rags on the dirty floor, the Imperial Dragon being zero exception to this. Next we see Kim visiting Eve and finally learning the scope of these disasters, finding out that 4 climbers have appeared. It's possible that this time there's a high-ranked climber with them, one who is ringleading the rest. Meanwhile, if Kim can defeat that one person, the others will vanish alongside their master. Eve gives her speculation and the truth that their leader is currently on the American continent, and our man takes a moment to consider his options. The simplest way would just be to go and clean the clock of whoever was doing this, but what would happen to his buddies in Korea if he did that? Even with Miryong there, their chances against someone like this were slim at best. Then a surprise pop-up appears, but that's something they don't show. Back in the Korean battlefield, Xion is looking at the slumped Miryong and cursing to himself that Hyunwoo wasn't there with them. But then he remembers. He was the one who said they should deal with this under their own strength. Why is he blaming Kim, a person who isn't even here? That's it. They were just too weak. All of them. But Miryong, the powerful and prideful woman that she is, and I say that out of actual respect, gets up and looks to her target, her old methodology of thought shattered. She can no longer see the world like she used to if she wants to win this fight. She had idolized strength and begun to rest on her laurels as a result of owning China. Now she's paying the price. But while the Azure Lion is showing off the technique of how he had devoured 100,000 soldiers, Gwen pulls a Clippy and says, "It looks like you need some help." She refuses the aid of the Spectral Queen, so Gwen unexpectedly lends her power to Miryong just the once. Oh no! With Miryung now having white hair, horns, and sharp teeth like the demon she is, the Azure Lion suddenly freezes as he can't expand his mouth anymore. He wonders what the fluff is going on, but is cut short by recognizable words coming out of Miryung's mouth. First step. Great, so the Lolly of Doom now has pressure manipulation. Going through her steps, the lion is brought to heal faster than food disappears off Hyunwoo's plate. How amusing. You're barely worth anything, and you're trying to prove you're a big shot? The lion growls and screams that if his achievements had been recognized, then she wouldn't have even stood a chance. But even if that was the case, he wouldn't be able to leave so much as a scratch on her. Why? Because he wasn't the only climber assigned a wrong bloody rank. If all Gwen's achievements had been recognized properly, she would have introduced herself differently. The 10-step destruction is complete, and we learn her true title in this world, the goddess of all monsters. Meanwhile, in Mexico City, Kim's other student is about to pull an Aperture Science and test her new toy on the white elephant. That book looks oddly familiar. Isn't that? Huh. Okay, interesting. So it was an artifact. She's called an evil female dog, but to be fair, that's very rich coming from someone who had just flattened the city in a coat of rubble. Though the girl thanks the white elephant, not only for taking out her targets, but becoming a guinea pig for her new abilities. Here I thought Miryung was sadistic. Wait, that rank? 4th worldwide? The Shadow Assassin? Oh no, not again. Meanwhile in Korea, Soyeon and Seokwon are in the hospital from Shiyeon's efforts. He had brought them there and just patched up his severe wounds like they were mere annoyances, going off on his own once his friends were safe. Standing on a roof somewhere, a door ominously creaks open behind him. Meanwhile in Montana, USA, Sun Wukong is going real hard with that American spirit and blowing things up left, right, and center. Lockheed Martin would like a word with you, but something appears to be wrong with him. Yeah, sure. 300 clones was enough to take down the 9th layer since each of them was as strong as a low-ranked climber. However, half of his clones had been destroyed in a nigh instant, and right behind him with that ASMR voice, Kim whispers asking if he's the real one. Wukong flinches as the top of the building explodes from a single punch, as per the status quo. Or not? The dude actually tanks the hit to his armor and staff. Not bad. Asking who Kim is, the only reply is a smack to the floor off something at least 100 feet high. I don't know, I speak metric, not meat sauce. Suddenly, Wukong's staff grows an unfathomable length which destroys the building he's standing on. Kim lands a smaller distance away on another building. Oh, I see where this is going. Hey James, watch the comments for degenerates. And prep the 50 cal. Kim says he's a zookeeper, meant to deal with animals like Wukong. Beginning their fight immediately, the monkey's control over his staff is admirable, as it shrinks in record time. He repositions it and narrowly misses Kim while taking out several skyscrapers and breaking the sound barrier as it expands once more. Even a writer can't make this sound safe for work. But no matter the attempt, Kim just reaches out from under the rubble like a zombie rising from the grave and throws Monkey Man around like a puppy's chew toy. Into the floor you go, then that building. Is all this noisy bravado the only thing a high-ranking climber can do? It doesn't take long before Wukong is raging and trying in desperation to hold Kim off, wondering what fresh hell this bat had flown out from. He's forced to use a skill that would otherwise be a waste on this pathetic 9th layer of humanity. A magic circle appearing behind him while a halo forms atop his head. The sky crackles with lightning as thunder rains. Oh, well, this is going to be over quicker than I thought. Thanks, James. Good shooting. As you can imagine, the real-world lightning bolt is no match for Kim's divine form of the same. I'm sorry, but I can do that too. The Hunters Association watches out of respect, admiration, and fear as Kim takes on Wukong without a worry in the world, his divine lightning easily matching the Monkey King in strength and power. It isn't seeming to matter what's thrown at this unit of a human being. He just waltzes through like it's a mere Saturday morning cartoon. Wukong orders the lightning to keep striking in futility, trying and failing to make distance. Sending a wave of his own sparks, Kim forces the guy to defend himself, eventually knocking Monkey Man so far out of his depth that it stuns him for long enough to charge up what we've been waiting for. Asura's Flare Blast. The energy condensed into that attack takes form of a huge rumble, blinding his opponent while forcing them back even further. It's a miracle that they could survive this, given what Kim had gone through to get to his current position. Is he really losing to someone as pathetic as a 9th layer resident? Clearly, come on now. Don't be a sore loser about it. Kim keeps taunting, saying that this performance ain't bad for a monkey. Ooh, my man got a set of titanium between them legs. But Wukong has had enough. Even if this next move means that he can't climb the tower, he's going to put Kim in his proper place just this once. Oh, this I'm aching to see. Plenty of clones appear around him, each with their own fancy halo. Please don't tell me this is a legendary mode. They all attack him at once with bloodthirst and a lust for carnage, making an explosion equal in size to that of a many-story building. The question in the burning aftermath is, did that kill him? He's the protagonist, so no. It just pissed him off. Kim's wings break the dust cloud and Wukong's will to fight, I'd assume, rising him above the dirt with a new color of energy. That's how you know he's serious. Kim lands and stands before the king in a new pose, readying some kind of energy right in the guy's stomach area. It condenses in his palm. Destructive strike. This is easily 3 times the size of Wukong's energy attack, going off like a nuclear warhead in the middle of the city and ripping everything around it to shreds within moments of activation. All that's left from this is a crater, steam, and a ruined home that many will have to repair so the inhabitants may return. He had defeated the climber and his status scan was now at mid-high rank, which is a full step above where it was before. He had managed to defeat a climber without getting hurt this time, but the last had taken him 3 days. And think about this, the last one was a mid-rank at best. The fact that he leaped over a high rank means he has to be at least quadruple the strength.